In the name of the African ancestors who began the march of humankind in the womb of Mother Africa, we ask these ancestors to be with us, to strengthen us, and give us a vision for the future. In the name of the African ancestors who began the march of humankind in the womb of Mother Africa and marched down the Nile, laying the foundations for human civilization and culture, we ask these Africans to be with us, to strengthen us, and give us a vision for the future. In the name of these African ancestors who built their pyramids and their temples to their God concepts, to their principles, and to their moral values, who left us a legacy of architectural and monumental building unparalleled in the history of the world, we ask these ancestors who built the pyramids, who built the temples, to be with us, to strengthen us, and give us a vision for the future. We ask these African ancestors who took this African culture and extended it throughout Africa, building the stone cities of Zimbabwe, building the empires of the Sudan, Ghana, Mali, and Songhai, building the Swahili city-states along the east coast of Africa, and in Christian Africa, asking King Lalibela and giving him the courage to build the 12 churches of Lalibela from the ground down, monuments to the world. We ask these Africans who spread this culture to the Dogo and to the Akan and to the Yoruba and to the Bankongo and to the Zulu. We ask these Africans to be with us, to strengthen us, and give us a vision for the future. In the name of the Africans who opened up Africa, opened up the Nile Valley to other cultures and other peoples, and they came in and nurtured themselves on the African greatness. First coming in early with the ancient Hebrews, and they synthesized this culture and produced Judaism. Later coming in were the Christians, and they synthesized this culture and produced Christianity. Coming in were also the Greeks, who took the African culture, synthesized it, and produced Greek civilization. And then later, the Prophet Muhammad, and with the Arabs coming into the Nile Valley, they synthesized the culture and produced Islam. We ask these African ancestors, who as part of their legacy laid the foundations for Judaism, Christianity, Islam, and Greek civilization, to be with us, to strengthen us, and give us a vision for the future. We ask those African ancestors pulled out of Africa, taken to the hells of North America, South America, the Caribbean, maintaining the spirit of African humanity in their hearts and in their minds, and who left us this enormous legacy of struggle. We ask those Africans who resisted enslavement in the villages of Africa, who resisted enslavement in the shores of Africa, who resisted enslavement in those forts and dungeons, who resisted enslavement in the holds of those ships, who resisted enslavement when they arrived on these shores in the New World. We ask these Africans who ran into the highlands of northeast Brazil and established for 100 years the first free republic in the Americas, the Republic of Palmares, and their last great leader, Zumbi, whose spirit and sacrifice. We asked these Africans who replicated the Brazilian experience and went into the highlands of Jamaica and became the maroon-free communities. We asked these Africans who went into the backwoods of the Guyanas and Suriname and created free republic of the Suramaka and the Ajuka. We asked these Africans who went into the backwoods of Georgia and the swamps of Florida and moved with the Seminole Indians and resisted oppression. We ask these Africans who left us a legacy of struggle and resistance, the likes of which no one in the world has, to be with us, to strengthen us, and give us a vision for the future. We ask these Africans who created and laid for us a foundation of struggle and resistance that was passed on generation after generation, that was passed on to Harriet Tubman, who fought her way out of enslavement and became a symbol of freedom for all of us. Similarly, Frederick Douglass and hundreds of thousands of others fought their way out of enslavement. We asked those Africans who went with Boukman Dessalines to create the greatest revolutionary experience in the history of the world, the Haitian Revolution, leaving us a legacy, the likes of which no one else has had. We asked these Africans to be with us, to strengthen us, and give us a vision for the future.
Let us start our class with a prayer. Heavenly Father, Divine Mother, friend, beloved God, Jesus Christ, Bhagavan Krishna, Mahavatar Babaji, Larry Mahashai, Swami Shri Yukteswarji, our Guru, Paramahansa Yogananda Ji, saints of all religions, we bow to all of you. Heavenly Father, Divine Mother, great Gurus, receive our love, receive our desire to love you more, to attune our hearts and minds with your great presence. Om, peace.
Very, very pleasant morning to you. Welcome once again. Thank you very much, Shane Clark. What good? Tell him other one howdy. My name is Kabu Ma'at Keru. My producer is Joy Morgan. We're going through until 10 o'clock. Then it will be time for the Sunday Sunshine. You're inside of the Africa Forum. It's Running African. With a simple vision, but a complex vision and a very important vision. Working hard towards achieving the vision of reuniting the African family for development. Understanding that the mission is to bear witness and to demand change. To be part of that change. To be that change agent. Developing an African-centered agenda for change and development. Welcome to the Africa Forum. Welcome to the space. A Pan-African space, an African-centered space. Today is Sunday, March 23, 2014. The exact day to the day. 98 years to the day when Mwalimu Marcus Messiah Garvey arrived in New York, March 23, 1916, for a series of lecture tours as fundraisers to establish an industrial institute in Jamaica. 100 years now. 100 years of the UNIA, 100 years of Garveyism. We've got a lot coming up inside of the program this morning at 13 minutes after 6 o'clock. This morning we're going to be turning our attention to a few issues to be discussed, few events, and of course, one motivational interview. I guarantee you that it is going to be so. Going to be talking about 100 years of the UNIA ACL. We're calling it in our series leading up to August and then beyond, 100 years of Garveyism. Mwalimu Marcus Messiah Garvey. And so today we're going to be talking with Imhotep Rahu Kimet Ba. You also know him as Dr. Arthure Green, so Imhotep Arthure Green. But he'll be joining us on the phone lines this morning to talk about the UNIA and ACL contribution to education, looking back to go forward. So just around 7 o'clock this morning, Dr. Arthure Green, Imhotep Rahu Kimet Ba, will be joining us on the phone lines to look at the 100 years of Garveyism, but to contextualize this within the discussion on education and the agenda, the education agenda of Mwalimu Marcus Messiah Garvey and, in essence, of the UNIA and ACL. Celebrating 100 years of Garveyism, 100 years of a founding of the UNIA and ACL. All right, so we're going to be also having this morning, we're going live to Ethiopia. Going to be going live to Ethiopia this morning because we're going to be talking about what I consider, this is going to be really big. You know, Mutabaruka has been asking me about this exhibition, and we've been trying to get information on it. But interestingly, the information on this exhibition did not come from Ethiopia. The information on the exhibition came from the Jamaican High Commission in South Africa. A request for the Jamaica High Commission in South Africa to me to talk about the Ras Tafari, the Majesty and the Movement exhibition. So really thank the Jamaica High Commission's office in South Africa for pointing this out. Muta has been asking me about it, and I've been Googling. But the problem with that is that Muta didn't give me the title. Mutabaruka, you did not give me the title of the exhibition. That's why I didn't have a clue what you were talking about. But he kept saying to me, something big is going to be happening in Ethiopia. Something big is going to be happening in Ethiopia. And you know what? He was right. He's right. The South African High Commission, the Jamaica High Commission in South Africa wrote to me asking if I would pay some attention to the exhibition entitled Ras Tafari, the Majesty and the Movement. And we're quite willing and ready and available to talk about this. The exhibition was named the Blockbuster Event of 2014 by the New York Times. It will be held at the National Museum of Ethiopia in Addis Ababa from May 25 to June 25, 2014. And we're going to be speaking... We're going to be speaking with Dr. Desta Megu. Dr. Desta Megu, a Pan-African activist living and working in Ethiopia. You know her. We have spoken to her in this space before. She serves also as liaison to the African Union for the Diaspora Africa Forum. She is chief coordinator and co-curator of Ras Tafari, the Majesty and the Movement exhibition. And she earned her Juris Doctor at the University of Florida College of Law, then was appointed acting director for the University of Florida Law School Center for Race and Race Relations before becoming managing director of the Bob Marley Foundation in the USA in 2004. Dr. Desta Megu, after coordinating Africa Unite Bob Marley's 60th birthday in Addis Ababa, she moved to Ethiopia with the 4 youngest of her 10 children to open a consulting firm, DYMDC and Associates, specializing in management and promotion of the arts towards development in Africa. Amongst other development projects, she has also had management, has had a management firm of the late 1980s to the 1990s, where she managed Judy Mowat, Rita Marley, Augustus Pablo, Israel Vibrations, the Meditations, and the Nigerian, who will play from time to time on this program, Sonny Okosons, amongst others. And she names as her mentors people like, slipping down, Nana Rita Marley. She names people, some ancient Rastafarians. I'm going to get those names for you. Those persons who she has named as persons who mentored her in Africa, outside of Africa, and just along the way. And today she is participating and part in a big way as a co-creator and coordinator of the exhibition, which is entitled Ras Tafari, the Majesty and the Movement. We're also going to be speaking with the chief curator of Ras Tafari, the Majesty and the Movement exhibition, the RTMM, Ras Danijah Tafari. In the 1970s, a lot of you might recall Ras Danijah. He became immersed in Ras Tafari International Headquarters in Kennington, where he served as a librarian, administrator, cultural and arts organizer, and facilitating sermons in a priest-like kind of way for special events. Now, he began his serious education in the arts after 2 years in the USA and got his BA, earned his BA from the prestigious St. Martin's School of Art in London, and his master's in arts management and policy from City University. Joined the Black Arts Cultural Movement while working with the EWF, the 12 Tribes of Israel, and became baptized member of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. His postgraduate work is in education. He has taught in media and education. Also, Ras Niah has taught at the Edna Manley School of Art, and you might recall him from his contributions in the Sunday Gleaner Culture and Arts column. And he's been on the continent, focused on Ethiopia. By 1998, actually, he returned to the continent. His focus has been on Ethiopia, where he began making plans to reside permanently. Still pursues a career as a professional fine artist and writer, publishing his first book on the Rastafarian movement in Amharic and English. It's entitled Basology. He's also lived all across the continent of Africa, Zimbabwe, South Africa, Ethiopia, Morocco, and so on. So he's part of the chief curator of Rastafari, the movement, the Majesty and the Movement, an exhibition that's running from May 25 to June 25 on the continent of Africa in Ethiopia. We understand it's going to move across the continent of Africa. We're certainly looking forward to this. It sounds as if it's going to be big. When I read the itinerary, I was totally immersed in this thing and was literally transported to Ethiopia. When you talk about a Nyabingi, a multilingual Nyabingi on Entoto Mountain as part of the activities, I got goosebumps just seeing that. And you talk about lunch at Wanda Gannett, I thought, wow. Talk about the activities that's going to be on Shashamane, because it's going to move from Addis to Shashamane, and how all of that is going to include, making Aksum, Lalibela, Gondor. I mean, this is going to be big on the continent of Africa. Going to be speaking with Dr. Desta Megu, and also with Ras Tafari come later on in the program. And we've been talking to this young politician. Yes, we've been talking to this young politician about success, about motivation, about fathering, about the essence of family and what family means, about poverty and whether or not poverty really, out of poverty can come something successful, and how that can be done, the role of a parent, the role of a family, the role of the mother. Dr. Dayton Campbell is a medical doctor. He's a past president of the Jamaica Medical Doctors Association. He's member of Parliament for Centre and Northwestern. And most importantly, he says he's a proud father. He's a believer in Jamaica. And he will be joining me in the studio this morning. He's joining me in the studio along with his father. His father is Mason Campbell, a father and a farmer. And their story is an important story to be told in Jamaica. Dr. Dayton Campbell he has had countless challenges in his life, knowing and understanding poverty to the highest level. We're speaking to him this morning because we have spoken to him before in another program on Sex-Wise, and we thought, we need to talk to you in this space also, because as a young black man in Jamaica, facing the kind of poverty that you faced, understanding what that meant, and saying to yourself at an early age that I'm going to make something of my life. A young black man whose father was in and out of prison, probably in prison more than he was home, who rose out of that, created a space for himself and a place for himself with the help of his mother, and we're going to be talking about the role of his mother and the help of his family, and to talk also about his sisters and how they're doing. A family that made it against all odds. But we're doing this because we want to say to others, to parents and to young people, that poverty must not be an excuse. Poverty, really, this is something that we say is a crime. We know there's a song that says poverty is not a crime. Well, we say it's a crime. It's a criminal act. For fostered by a capitalist society. But Dr. Dayton Campbell is going to come in this morning and talk to us about how he rose out of that, managed to be, to have gone to medical school, is a practicing medical doctor, is now a student at the Norman Manley Law School here at the University of the West Indies, and also at the same time, a member of Parliament, has entered politics at an early age. He's coming with his father. His father, as I said before, has been in prison probably more than he's been out, and he's now out. Just recently, he's coming with his father this morning into this space to talk to us about achieving in spite of obstacles, in spite of challenges. I think for him, excellence was the highest form of rebellion. Later on in the program, we're going to be talking about the Trinidadian textbook, Creative English for Caribbean and Primary Schools. This book spews racism. It foregrounds Eurocentric ideals of beauty, and this book is being used in some Jamaican schools. We're going to be talking to Dr. Sonia Stanley Niah. She has brought this to the public attention. Dr. Niah is the inaugural Rhodes Trust Rex Nettleford Fellow in Cultural Studies, 2005, a senior lecturer in Cultural Studies at the University of the West Indies, Mona. She's the author of Dance Hall, From Slave Ship to Ghetto, and published by the University of Ottawa Press, and she's the editor of Broader Than Broadway, Caribbean Perspectives on Producing Celebrity, 2009. She's going to be joining me on the phone lines, but we have to talk about this book and why parents should reject this audacity. This book that is now in some of our schools, in some of our primary schools. That, as I said before, spews racism. It is pure racism. I'm not calling it anything else. It is what it is. Maybe colorism. Yeah, we'll be close. So we're going to be talking about that troubling section of the book that defines beauty and defines likability, when someone can be likable and what makes someone likable. This book that is being taught and read to children in some of Jamaica's prep and primary schools. All right, so we have a lot to get through. I didn't say that we're going to also open the phone lines for you to ask questions of Dr. Dayton Campbell and his father when they come into the studio this morning. So it's going to be a split interview. They're going to talk to us for a minute and then go. We're going to be having a few things in between. Then they'll return for the question and answer segment. In the bottom line this morning, I want to talk to you about the continued conspiracy to dehumanize the African Jamaican, and as a result of that, the masses of the Jamaican people. The systematic denial of humanness to the majority of Jamaicans through government policies, state institutions, political tribalism, colorism, and classism. A very, very pleasant morning to you. Thank you very much for joining us. I did also say to you last week that the word Rasta, R-A-S-T-A, it's spelled that way for the most part, in the book of Coming Forth by Day, is mentioned in the book of Coming Forth by Day 32 times. Now, we know that when we're talking about Rasta, we're talking about Ras Tafari. But word sound is power. And so hardly anybody we just say, a lot of people say Rasta. Even Rastafarians themselves say Rasta. And people will ask, are you a Rasta? Or people say, I'm a Rasta. And so the word is part of a lexicon here in Jamaica. It's part of our everyday language, part of we use this and we know what we're talking about when we say Rasta. But isn't it interesting that the word Rasta, capital R-A-S-T-A, is mentioned in the book of Coming Forth by Day 32 times. If I can just get it in a bigger font, I'll be able to read. All right, so we're going to be talking to you about that. And of course, it's from the Papyrus of Ani, the pyramid texts, as you know, the Book of Coming Forth by Day. Some people call it the Book of the Dead. We don't have to continue calling it that. We know that the Book of Coming Forth by Day. Most persons have, Bodge and others have focused on the Papyrus of Ani. Many other papyri. There's also from the pyramid texts, the Book of Ma'at Keru, which we'll probably talk about another time, and many others. So, but for this morning, I think we're going to be focusing on the papyrus, the pyramid texts, the Papyrus of Ani, because this is where the word Rasta is mentioned 32 times. So I'm going to give you a quick synopsis of what it says, what it defines Rasta as, and so on and so forth. All right, and in between that, we've got bits and pieces of information and also the music. You're inside of the Africa Forum, Running African.
Hide nothing from the masses of the people. Tell no lies. Expose lies whenever they are told. Mask no difficulties, mistakes, failures. Claim no easy victory.
JN International Money Transfer. Safe, convenient, affordable. The time by JN Money Transfer is...
It is, nothing is new under the sun, and so going all the way back to the beginning, as far back to the beginning, or as far forward to the beginning as you can go, the word Rasta has been in the lexicon, has been on the lips of many, including the ancient Kemetians, the ancient Egyptians. And I just thought, I know many of you have read the Book of Coming Forth by Day, Manifested in Light, so you would have seen this, but many others haven't. And so I thought I should share this. I've been wanting to do so since 2005, 7? Something like that. But you know, with the Book of Coming Forth by Day, that you read and you reread and you read and you reread, and then every time I reread this book, because you're always looking for information on something else, so you keep going back to the book, and every time I do, I've been doing that over the years, and every time I do that, I'm reminded that I must bring this to this space, the Africa Forum, and talk a little bit about this and allow you to draw your own conclusions from this. But the Papyrus of Ani, the pyramid text. Well, as far as Rasta is concerned, in the Papyrus of Ani and the Book of Coming Forth by Day, it is sometimes spelled R-A-S-T-A-U, but most of the times it's spelled R-A-S-T-A. It's identified as, and this is how it's identified, a name given, and it is identified in more than one way, so you have to listen closely. A name given to the passages which lead from this world to the other world. It's also identified as a doorway in the form of a pylon with palm leaf cornice and 2 leaves which are shut and bolted. It's also described as a door of the corridors in the mountains. Rasta is a door of the corridors in the mountains. It's also described as a name given to the entrance to the corridors which led to the kingdom of Sekher at or quite near to the modern region of Saqqara. You know, I went to Egypt, I've been to Egypt a few times, and I remember one of the times when we went to Saqqara and to the pyramids of Saqqara, I wrote a poem on the spot in my head talking about the mountains, talking about the sun that bounced off the sand, and what made me sad at Saqqara. The fire from the sky was one thing, but what broke my heart at Saqqara was that those who we had taught, and this is what I wrote about, those who we had taught papyrus was now telling us how to make it. Yeah. But genetic memory is a hell of a thing, and we know it's encoded in our DNA, and we'll not forget. We'll always remember it's there in our DNA. Did I not teach him papyrus? Now he teaches me paper. Have we forgotten? Genetic memory loss. Can you imagine? I'm quoting my own poetry. All right, so let me get back to this. So Rasta is also described as the name given to the entrance to the corridors which led to the kingdom of Saqqara at or quite near to the modern region of Saqqara. In Budge, an entire chapter entitled The Chapter of Taking Away, Taking or Making Away in Rasta. An entire chapter is devoted to that. The chapter of making or taking away in Rasta. Now, it also talks about the god of Rasta as Heru, and most people using the Greek word talk about Horus, but we're using the Kemetic words here. So the god of Rasta is identified as Heru. Heru, hawk-headed and wearing the crowns of the south and the north. Or in the manifested in light, the book of coming forth, or as the Greeks call this ancient deity, Osiris, but Osor, who is a child of Geb and Nut, and you know they are from the beginning because Geb and Nut are thought in Egyptian theology, in Kemetic theology, to be the original creators of everything. And so Osor becomes who the Egyptians call Osiris, or the Greeks call Osiris. So Osor, the child of Geb and Nut, also the sibling of Set and Nephthys, is the progenitor of humankind. They're all the progenitors of humankind. That's Osor, Set, Nephthys, Geb, Nut. All right? Well, Rasta, the governor of Rasta in the Book of the Dead, is identified as Osor, or Osiris. As far as the word Rasta is concerned, you really can't get further back than that, or forward for that matter. It is what it is. You really can't get further back or forward than that, as far as the word is concerned.
Set thy glory above the heavens. For out of the mouths of babes and sucklings are thou art in strength to still enemies and the avenger. With thy new name, O Jah Ras Tafari.
Also, Osor is identified as being in the shrines of Rasta, and then later on in Rasta. So, and this is from the beginning then. 2,400 years, 3,000 years, 5,000 years before Christ we're talking about. We're going back before Christ. This is thousands and thousands of years before Christ. So, Osor then, who is a child of the creator, the child of the creators of Geb and Nut, identified as being in the shrines of Rasta, and then later on in Rasta. The book of Coming Forth by Day also talks about in the abode of the blessed, there are many arts or secret gates. Many mansions is how we come to talk about it. In the abode of the blessed, there are many arts or many secret gates or many mansions. And the 12th art or the 12th secret gate is defined as being close to Rasta. Also, we see in the book of Coming Forth by Day, Arthure ascending on his journey to perfect perfection and excel in excellence, that he passed by Rasta, and the power of the God of Rasta take him out, that is, take Arthure out of his own boat, because there was no river. So here was Arthure journeying to perfect perfection and to excel in excellence, to reunite with his car, but he has to pass by Rasta. But he's been traveling in a boat, and so when he got close to Rasta, he was taken out of that boat by the God of Rasta, and he was led by way of subterranean corridors and galleries in the rock through, or rather above, the awful kingdom of death. So he was led through or above the awful kingdom of death. All right, we're reading from these are ancient texts, the pyramid texts, from the book of Coming Forth by Day. It's called Manifested in Light. Some people call it the Book of the Dead, and people say the Book of the Dead, and they don't realize that this is really what, you talk about scrolls and papyrus, things that were found written on walls and things that were found written in tombs and so on, and that the information that came out of all these different areas are ancient, are some of the most ancient texts that we know as far back as we can go.
For it's a new name, precious name, new name.
All right, so also the God of Rasta has been identified as Heru, the child of Osar and Oset, completing the principle of the Trinity. So Osar, Oset, and Heru, the God of Rasta. In other words, so the Trinity is embodied in the God of Rasta then, according to the book of Coming Forth by Day. And Rasta, we've already said to you what it described as, what it's identified as, and what the name means. But so we're still telling you that so here we have the principle of a Trinity of Osar, Oset, and Heru embodied in the God of Rasta.
Yes,
and wearing the crown of the south and the north from the beginning of time. The scribe Ani, it's a papyrus of Ani. So the scribe Ani, A-N-I, is described in the book of Coming Forth by Day as arrayed in white apparel. Just picture this, because it's a description. It's very well described in the book of Coming Forth by Day. So the scribe is described as dressed in white, kneeling upon one knee, and with his hand raised in adoration. And so he's now in a prayerful stance, and he is calling upon the ancients. And some of the ancients that he's heard to call upon are Anu, Temu, Shu, Tefnut, Tetu, Asar, Oset, Nephthys, Heru Net Tef, Sekhem, Heru Kenti En Ariti, Teuti, Petep, Oset, Kesta, Happy, Rasta, Upatu, and Nerutef. The scribe Ani is heard to say in the book of Coming Forth by Day, I look upon the hidden things, the mysteries in Rasta. And then he's heard to announce, and this is what he said, let the way be opened in Rasta. He also said, he shineth brilliantly in Rasta, and I have brought unto thee the jawbone in Rasta. And this is where the idea of a jawbone comes from, that we see turning up in other texts. And later the scribe Annie is heard to say, I have entered into Rasta, I have made myself invisible, I have found the frontier, I have clothed the naked, I have risen like a king crowned, I fill my seat on the throne, in the place of my father, the God who was at the beginning. I have entered into Rasta, and I have seen the hidden one, or mystery, who is therein. And finally, the book of Coming Forth by Day, Manifested in Light, mentioned the word Rasta 32 times. I'm going to quote now directly from the book again, because this is one of the final mentions of Rasta in the book. Enter therefore unto Rasta, and pass through the hidden pylons of Amentet, and there shall be given unto thee Sheen's cakes and ale and person cakes, and thou shalt come forth and shalt enter at thy desire, even as do those who are favored of the God, and thou shalt be called to partake of offerings each day in the horizon. Enter therefore unto Rasta. It's going to be a celebration of Ras Tafari exhibition that starts on May 25. It runs through to June 25. But I think the big week, that first week of, say, May 21 to May probably 27, roundabout there, is a week that there's going to be a massive gathering of Pan-Africanist, African-centered people, Rastafarians, in Ethiopia, on the continent of Africa. All roads are leading to Ethiopia in May for this big Rastafari, the majesty and the movement. So that looks good to me. It sounds good. Gives me goose pimples, I'm telling you. That gathering in Ethiopia. And the one thing that really got to me, as I said before, is when I read that there was going to be a multilingual Nyabingi on Entoto Mountain. I thought to myself, boy, I don't see how I'm not going to be there, I don't see how I'm not going to be there. I'm not seeing that. I'm not seeing that at all. If it's even spirit, I am. And I put this in this way. I don't see myself not being there. I am literally transported there already in the spirit. We can do that, right? Black power. Black power. Black power. A gathering in Ethiopia. We're heading for the continent of Africa because there's a gathering in the Gambia in May. There's a gathering in Ethiopia in May. And right after that, there's going to be a gathering in South Africa. We're heading home. They thought they could have stopped us when they carried us to this shores on this side of the world. We can find our way forward. Find our way forward home. Africa is our home. We understand our African-centeredness, though, and so we understand that while we're here, being African means resisting, and not playing around with European or Eurocentric ideals. So we know we quash that, as Chief Taichi did. We quash that. I've been reading about in the 1920s, when, the Europeans came there, and they've been there. The Europeans have been in the Congo, in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, the center of the earth, forever. They discovered it a long time in terms of recognizing that this is a belly, this is a womb, this is a brain, this is a bosom of creation. And so they've been there for a long time, and the Roman Catholics have been there for a long time. And they have been spreading since the 15th century Roman Catholicism at the barrel of a gun in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. we have to understand the history of the DRC. And the DRC, the Congo at that time, included not just, the little area that is now marked out, although we know it's one of the biggest countries, so-called, on the continent of Africa. But parts of Angola was in that also, massive parts of Angola. But we know that all of Africa was divided up by the greedy ones. So Yaya Vita was a young girl who sat down and thought about this Eurocentric religion that they were forcing on a people who were the closest ever to God, because Africans understood that they were gods themselves and understood that the spirit, which was God, or the breath of God was a manifestation of the human Congolese. So they understood that. For them, God is, and everything that they were. So they understood that relationship. They understood that they themselves were gods. So when the Roman Catholics went into the Congo, and at the barrel of the gun and the whip and chains and so on, brought with them Roman Catholicism in the 15th century. Later on, in the 1600s, or was it 1700s, a young girl, Yaya Vita, came on the scene. She was just about 20. She looked at the teachings of the Roman Catholics, and she found a way to beat them at their own game. So they told her that now you have to worship a white Jesus. Now our saints are all white, and they're coming from Portugal and different places, and Belgium and so on. And one of the main saints that they pushed on the people of the Congo was a saint called Saint Anthony. And so Yaya Vita, as a young girl, looked at this and she said, okay, let's see how we can work this thing. And so she told them that she died. And in that moment of death, she was resurrected by Saint Anthony. Now they could not, they could not discount that, because to discount that is to discount the saint. So Yaya Vita said she was resurrected by Saint Anthony. But more than that, she said she died every Friday. And that's when she goes to heaven. And they had given her the idea of heaven being out of space. And so she said, I die every Friday. And that's when I go to heaven. And I awake every Monday. But it's in that period between Friday and Monday that I speak to Saint Anthony and that I speak to Jesus. And they could not discount that, because to discount that was to discount the white Jesus, and to discount that was to discount their saint, the Roman Catholic saint, Saint Anthony. So Yaya Vita said, all right, so Saint Anthony, is now, I am now Saint Anthony, because his spirit is in my body. And she took that teaching to the umpteenth level. She said, with thy new name, Jesus was born in the Congo. She said this is what they revealed to her, that Jesus was born in the Congo, that Mary was Congolese. I love Yaya Vita. She said Mary was Congolese. All the saints were Congolese. That civilization started and creation was in the Congo. That Congo is a birthplace of everything, including Jesus Christ. And she said Jesus, in essence, was black, Congolese, and so too was Mary. In fact, she says, Mary was a slave. She said Mary was a slave in the Congo. And this was a teaching. This was a teaching that she brought forth in the Congo in the 1700s. From 1704 to 1706, Yaya Vita dominated the Congo. She had hundreds of thousands of followers. They call it the Antonian religion or something to that. You can look up Antonianism or something like that, and you'll see what I'm saying. Yaya Vita took the European and the Eurocentric ideals, and she turned it on its head. And she said, well, you carry your religion, Roman Catholics, to us here and expect for us to throw away that which we know because we are the children of the Creator and the children of the universe. And you want to tell us that the Creator, the being who we have been worshipping all our lives, came from somewhere else and that they're white? Well, listen to me, you Roman Catholics who call yourself Christians. Jesus was born in the Congo. Mary was born in the Congo. The saints were born in the Congo. In fact, they were all Congolese. Take that. I think that's what we have to begin to do. Antonianism live until this day. Believe me. All right, we're going to take a break.
Mass, no difficulties.
Small tummies. The time by Nestum toddler cereals is...
Now, 4 minutes after 7 o'clock, you're inside of the Africa Forum, Running Africa. And I want to say a very pleasant morning to Jazazai. Jazazai, we just learned yesterday that Jazazai has been in the hospital. Didn't know at all. So, Jazazai, good morning to you, my sister. And all the best. Know that you're holding it together. And to Majai, good morning. Good morning, my brother.
ATL Automotive Limited, your authorized distributors for Honda, Volkswagen, Audi, Jaguar and Land Rover, is open on Saturdays from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. The time by ATL Automotive is...
Now, 4 minutes after 7 o'clock, you're inside of the Africa Forum, Running Africa. And in this segment of the program, going to be talking about 100 years of Garveyism. Dr. Arthure Green, Imhotep Rahu Kimet Ba, joins me on the phone lines right after this. Years of the UNIA ACL. Today actually marks the 98 years to the day when Mwalimu Marcus Messiah Garvey arrived in New York, March 23, 1916, for a series of lecture tours as a fundraiser to establish an industrial institute in Jamaica. Today we're looking at the UNIA ACL and Mwalimu Marcus Messiah Garvey's contribution to education. Ba is a founder of the UAIA and also of the African-Centered Liberation Movement. He's a medical doctor. He studied in Jamaica, Florida, and Czechoslovakia. He's author of Practical Solutions for Jamaica, A Nation in Crisis, and the soon-to-be published book entitled An Essay on Crime in Jamaica, to be published by Ron Kabu. All right, Dr. Arthure Green, Imhotep Rahu Kimet Ba, joins me on the phone lines to talk about the UNIA and ACL, Mwalimu's Marcus Messiah Garvey's contribution to education.
Oh, well, actually, it's the date on which he actually arrived in New York in 1916. Mm-hmm. And, his mission at that time was really to carry out a series of lectures from which he would be able to raise funds. And that fund was to be plowed back into setting up institution of learning for agriculture and industry right here in Jamaica. Mm-hmm. So right from the get-go, we could see the trust on education and how important it was to the movement.
Well, let us talk about that. How important was education to the agenda of the UNIA ACL?
Well, it was of paramount importance and, indispensable for the progress that was made. In fact, Mr. Garvey himself, addressing a gathering in Halifax, Nova Scotia in 1937, said, and quote, "I am a public lecturer. I endeavor to help to educate the public, especially those of my race, to know, to understand, to realize themselves." He went on further to say that education is the weapon of human control. If you can educate a people in the idea that you have, they will react to your satisfaction, whether the education as a propaganda is right or wrong. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Further, Garvey's overriding concern was to develop a curriculum of fierce Afrocentric view of the world, and that is very, very important. And that was highly stressed in all of the the meetings.
All right, so that his stance on education, obviously a very, very serious one. Do you want to elaborate on that? What was his stance on education generally?
Well, the stance generally was for empowerment of the groups, and it included a lot of training, because Garvey's principle and belief was that you could not blame someone for their lack of or inability to perform if that person was not given prior training. And so he placed great emphasis in all of the bodies that he had, the Black Cross, nurses, the military arm, and the different corps. All of them, he ensured that adequate training and education was given to the participants so that he could get the best functioning movement that was available at the time.
Mm-hmm. To what?
Fact,
yes, go ahead.
Well, another thing that could highlight this thing was that, in fact, the UNI is what we'd call the last educational endeavor in Garvey's lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
As you know, he died in 1940 in England.
Mm-hmm.
And that was where he set up the School of the African Philosophy, and offered a course called the Course of African Philosophy. And that course, interestingly, was conducted by Garvey himself.
Yes.
One of the rare things. And on completion of that course, he declared, quotation, "I have given them all I know. I am trying to make everyone a Marcus Garvey person."
So say that again. I have given them all I know. I am trying to make everyone a Marcus Garvey
personified. Right. So
wow.
A statement such as this clearly attests to Garvey's vision of education serving as a tool of empowerment.
Mm-hmm. And it leads us to question where we have come, where we are now in terms of how we view education. I'm going to be speaking with Dr. Sonia Stanley Niah right after you, I believe, talking about the fight that we still have as a people to ensure that we remove from the classroom books which continue to spew Eurocentric ideals. We still, I was watching Live at 7 on Friday evening, and there was a teacher on who was defending that, did not see anything wrong with that, but she was not the only one, and she's not the only one, so we don't want to make this about her. But the extent to which we have not moved away, it seems as if we've made some backward steps in terms of how Eurocentric ideals have now become part of what we are spewing now as multicultural societies.
Yeah, clearly that is in itself a tragedy, given the fact that we had presidents to the country so early in the day, because the UNIA branches in several countries ran both elementary and secondary schools. And in those schools, the curriculum shared a common trust and vision, which was for the presentation of an Afrocentric perspective. And Mr. Garvey clearly was very adamant about that.
And that is why Pan-Africanism today must return to Mwalimu Marcus Messiah Garvey, and to see how we can, look at stuff like this. I mean, his stance on education, but how to bring that, to make that relevant to ourselves right now. Not much tweaking is required, but of course we're now in the digital age and so on. So we're going to have to expound and to build on some of what Mwalimu taught, but that it is the responsibility of Pan-Africanism and African-centeredness to return to the source, to Sankofa.
Well, that's true. Garvey himself espoused critical thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And he himself advises us, in quotation, he says, "Never swallow wholly what the white man writes or says without first critically analyzing it. For," quotation, "things that may not be true can be made so if you repeat them long and often enough." And that's a direct quotation from Marcus Messiah Garvey.
Repeat that for us, Imhotep.
Yes, critical thinking. Garvey himself speaking and admonishes us, never allow or never swallow wholly what the white man writes or says without first critically analyzing it. For things that may not be true can be made so if you repeat them long and often enough.
And one of the things that we have to underscore here is that when we talk about critical analysis, we're not talking about just criticizing. When people hear the word critical analysis, they think, oh, you're going to criticize this. It's not just about that. It is looking closely at who wrote this, who funded this, what is the reason for this person writing it, where are the power connections in all of this. These are some serious questions that anything we take up and read, these are some questions that we have to ask ourselves. Who is this person representing? Which paper is this published in? Whose voice is being heard here? And so on and so forth. All right, so what were some of the educational institutions associated with the UNIA?
Well, as early as from the 1920s, and by this time, of course, he was in the Americas. He had they ran the Booker T. Washington University in Harlem, New York. And in 1926, the Smallwood Carey Industrial Institute in Claremont, Virginia, was purchased by the organization and renamed as the Universal Liberty University. And I think at the top of the ladder, you know, as we say, in the School of African Philosophy in 1937 in Toronto, Canada. And that was the place where he was actually giving these classic 22 lessons of African empowerment, including the whole range from education all the way through to industry and development. And in addition, that school was so advanced for its time that they even offered a correspondence course. Can you believe that?
Wow.
Interestingly enough, the conception of that school was as early as from 1934, right here when the 7th, International Convention of the Black Peoples was held here in Kingston, Jamaica. And it came to fruition in 1937 there in Toronto. So these were some of the paramount institutions that had such great and lasting impact on the movement.
And as you talk about the School of African Philosophy, my mind drifted to China and Jamaica and the center. What's the name of the center we have at UWI now? The Confucius Institute is one of the biggest things on the campus of the University of the West Indies. And by itself, nothing is wrong with that. But where is the balance? Where is the Marcus Garvey Institute at the University of the West Indies? Where's the Marcus Garvey Institute at NCU? Where's the Marcus Garvey Institute at UTEC? We are rolling over ourselves because we get some dollars with this, because we get some funding, because we get some aid, beggars all the time with the Confucius Institute. Alongside the Confucius Institute, what about the School of African Philosophy? What about the School of the Marcus Garvey Institute? What about that? What's your own thinking on this, Dr. Green?
Yes, well, it's a sad lack and oversight at best, and ignorance at worst. Garvey himself has said in quotation that intelligence rules the world and ignorance carries the burden. And the weight of that statement has to be brought to bear in a situation like this.
It really is appearing to be an uphill battle. The thing about it is that China is an empire to be reckoned with. China has developed itself to the point where it is at now, and have developed their own Confucius Institute because they understand the importance of the ancestors and the importance of teaching their culture and learning about themselves and their history and so on. And so they are exporting their idea in a globalization kind of way. And as I said before, really by itself, nothing wrong with that. But I'm saying, what have we developed for ourselves? Why have we embraced a Confucius Institute at the expense of a Mwalimu Marcus Messiah Garvey Institute, at the expense of a School of African Philosophy? This is a question I'm asking 100 years after, 100 years of Garveyism.
Well, you mentioned ideas, and that is so true, because even though Mwalimu has joined the ancestors, his ideas and ideas as energy still live on. And because those ideas are still available to us, we need to revisit these ideas. And in so doing, we'll be able to empower ourselves and actually to carry out true emancipation of the race. It's not too late still.
100 years of UNIA and ACL, 100 years of Garveyism, and where are we? What are we talking about? Quick break. We'll be right back. Hold the line for me, please, Arthur.
Speak truth to the people. To identify the enemy is to free the mind. Free the mind of the people. Speak to the mind of the people. Speak truth.
100 years of UNIA and ACL, 100 years of Garveyism this year, and we are looking this morning at the UNIA and ACL and Mwalimu's Marcus Garvey's contribution to education. On the phone lines, Imhotep Raho Kimet Ba talking about this topic. He is one of the founding members of UAIA here in St. Anne and also founding member of the African-Centered Liberation Movement, author of Practical Solutions for Jamaica, a Nation in Crisis, and the soon-to-be published book and essay on crime in Jamaica. And let's go back, Arthur, to look at some of what was the main focus of the UNIA's educational curriculum.
Yes. Well, the curriculum focused on adequate training at all levels for all the groups. And as I stated before, Garvey's overriding concern was to develop a curriculum of fierce Afrocentric view of the world. And this is of paramount importance, I think, because we still, based on what you just said in the discussion, we still need, while we embrace other cultures and benefit or experience them, we still need to revisit this, because this is in a country where we are over 95% Africans. There is clearly, one, an identity crisis, and two, such a curriculum does not exist, because Garvey, who espoused critical thinking, it is clear to us then that when it comes to critical thinking, most non-Europeans find themselves at the conjunctional of comprehension and are thus unable to find any way out that is varying from a Eurocentric worldview. So we have to break down this barrier.
And that's the thing, that a very confusing place to be, because unable to find any way out of the Eurocentric ideals.
Yes.
You know, so obviously what the reasons for that are myriad, and we can talk about that another time in terms of a psychic trauma and so on. But then you've also said that we have to break this barrier. How does one do that within the context of Mwalimu Marcus Messiah Garvey?
I think all of us who have this consciousness will have no choice but to lobby to the forces, the Ministry of Education, and to actually demand to revisit the curriculum, to rehash the curriculum, because as it stands at the moment, the curriculum clearly embodies a high percentage and high degree and high influence from a Eurocentric worldview in a country where the children of the future are clearly more and more unsure of who they are, and they are not being bolstered or supported or guided in the right direction.
I was speaking to a teacher in the UK yesterday. She teaches at a school which is a model school for critical thinking for kindergarten and primary age students, because this is where they're going now in terms of changing the way they view education in the UK. We hear Jamaica talking about it. We don't know, it hasn't been implemented yet. But in England, that is well underway. And so she's one of those persons who have taught at that school for many, many years. And she says one of the courses that they're now teaching is on Egypt, and that these ages 3, 4, 5, 6 are learning, but within the UK context, from the British perspective, about ancient Egypt, about the pyramids. She says some of them, you know, sometimes she finds it so funny with the little children trying to pronounce sarcophagus. And I'm saying, wow, I mean, it's a word that we're just getting used to underground here in Jamaica. And, you know, so that here they are in the UK, in Britain, embracing the teaching of African history from a Eurocentric perspective, ensuring that the children as young as 3, 4, and 5 are learning about the pharaohs, are learning about the pyramids, are learning about, the ancient kingdoms and so on. And yet we haven't even begun to introduce that at any level in any school in Jamaica, unless I don't even know if Egyptology is available anywhere on the ground here. Maybe not. So I don't know of anything of our ancient selves being included in the curriculum here in Jamaica.
Certainly, we have no knowledge of that, and that is really a tragedy in itself, and so movements that we are doing now will entail trying to definitely starting out to teach an African language, such as Swahili. We have to start out in our small groups, organizations. We have to network together again and start to, empower each other, learning the languages, and probably even convincing those in authority that, such offerings should be made at the primary school level, high school level, right through to university, because it's a shame that we are here speaking, a foreign language where we are almost 100% Africans and not having a clue as to even one of the many African languages available to us, whether it's Amharic, Swahili, or Zulu, or Kikongo. And
so
without a person without their language is robbed and actually anemic in terms of their culture. And that's why we are so weakened mentally and as well as spiritually.
And so that the way forward is a reclamation of our African-centeredness. Just before you go, tell us a little bit about the African-centered liberation movement.
This movement was convened on the 26th of July last year. And the aim of this basically is to carry forward an Afrocentric worldview, initiation in self-identification and empowerment through learning the African language, its culture, and actually practicing some of the rituals themselves. So,
or can persons become part of this movement?
The movement is open for anyone who clearly is able and willing to identify themselves as being African. And, they can, we give a contact number where we can get together and share ideas.
What's the number?
357-9692.
357-9692. All right, thank you very much, Dr. Arthure Green, Imhotep, Rahu Kimetba. Thank you very much. All right. Facebook, Andrea Maat Keru Williams. Andrea Maat Keru Williams. You can follow me on Twitter. And that's Facebook. And also you can send us an email, andrea.williams@irefm.net. Our Facebook page is up. The Running African Facebook page is up. Usually we check that after we have left the program. But you can also converse and communicate with me directly via Twitter and also via Andrea Maat Keru Facebook page. All right, somebody had written in to say, could I spell Yaya Vita, Yaya Kimpa Vita? We left out Kimpa, but Yaya is Y-A-Y-A, Y-A-Y-A, and Kimpa, K-I-M-P-A, K-I-M-P-A, Kimpa, Vita, V-I-T-A, Yaya Kimpa Celsius right here in Otria, standing by to go to Ethiopia. Of course, we're going to be talking with Dr. Desta Magoo and Ras Danija Tafari, talking in this segment of the program about the Ras Tafari, the Majesty and the Movement exhibition that's happening in Ethiopia from May 25 to June 25. Dr. Magoo, Pan-African activist living and working in Ethiopia, serving as liaison to the Africa Union for the Diaspora Africa Forum, chief coordinator and co-curator of Ras Tafari, the Majesty and the Movement exhibition. All right, we're going to be also talking to Ras Danija Tafari. We told you much about them earlier in the program this morning. The last of the great aunts within my own family who was buried yesterday. The last of the great aunts who identified herself as a Maroon. My family, we come from a long line of Maroons on both sides of my mother's family. Her father and her mother on both sides are descendants of Maroons. They The family for many moons have been ashamed to identify themselves as such. They identify themselves as Christians, and that's okay too. And so the last of the great aunts who identified herself without embarrassment, without shame, and proudly so, Evelyn Astoria Ferguson, she passed on, and to her family, I say she understands the transition process as an ancient African woman, and she understands her African-centeredness. She understands. We come and we go. But take heart, because I know that you're still mourning. Take heart. Hortense and Pam, take heart, all right? We'll give you a call. In Guyana in 1980, Walter Rodney. The Walter Rodney Commission of Inquiry is underway in Guyana. We've been keeping track of that. All right, standing by to go to Ethiopia, to Dr. Desta Megu. Ras Tafari, the Majesty and the Movement exhibition. Ethiopia, but we're working on that. We have spoken to them before this morning, so we're working on that.
We pledge allegiance to the Lion, the one who reigned from Mount Zion. We pledge allegiance to the Lion.
All right, we're going live to Ethiopia. We're going live to the continent of Africa, and as I said before, Ras Tafari, the Majesty and the Movement exhibition is going to be a gathering of the people in Ethiopia. This one gave me goose pimples. I said, I just look at the itinerary, and the thing that really hit me for six, I knew that I had to be there one way or the other, was when I saw Dr. Desta, when I saw that part of the itinerary that said there were going to be a multilingual Nyabingi on Entoto Mountain. I said, look here, I don't know who's going to stop me from going to Ethiopia, but I'm going to find a way to get there. Dr. Desta Megu, good morning, my sister.
10 years to link this blessed love from the mountaintop from here in Addis Ababa.
Greetings.
Give thanks to all of our brothers and sisters on the island and listening. How are you, Sister Andrea?
I am doing very well. I was so... I can't tell the last time I felt so... revived and revitalized about making my way to the continent of Africa until I visited your Facebook page and went through, read your note and so on about Ras Tafari, the Majesty and the Movement exhibition. I just feel it, Dr. Desta, that this is going to be a gathering similar to the gathering that we saw for the Adwa celebration back in the 90s there in Ethiopia. I just felt that energy coming from it. All right, I don't know if Ras Danija is with you?
Yes, Ras Danija is right here, and I just want to caution you, the network is a bit unstable, but
yes,
we're going to do our best to stay on,
All right, we call it back if anything, but let's go through and see. Let us talk a little bit now about the background to this exhibition. Why this exhibition? Where did the idea come from?
Well, frankly speaking, several years ago when the Smithsonian exhibition was being planned, the Ancient Council of the Nyabingi Order appointed me among several others as international advisors to ensure that the exhibition would maintain the integrity and the concepts or the icepts of the Rastafari movement, particularly the Nyabingi Order. And so myself, Ras Iva, so many of us were part of that process in Washington, D.C. However, while it was certainly an amazing event and did a lot in terms of communicating our story and history, more importantly, to those who visited, it did not really do for us, I think, as much as we required in terms of the narrative of where we are also going and the liberation side, the Pan-African side, that other side. So I think that could only be told by us.
Yes.
And so the inspiration coming out of that now, Sister Rita and I, Rita Marley, went to the Smithsonian and said, well, why don't we take this back to Ethiopia and, we'll take it to Africa, let the people have it.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, long story short, it didn't work out, and the inspiration for Rastafari, the Majesty and the Movement led to the inception of an amazing event, as you said, that is done by us, for us, and with particularly the African youth, African media, and African governments in mind, because our story is a living story. This is not a historic perspective, if you will, on where we were and what we did. While certainly that is a part of the narrative, but more important, it's about our relevance today and our impact on the content. So here we...
Hope we didn't lose you. Did we lose you? No, Dr. Desta?
And later.
Okay, are you there?
Sorry, work is busy now. Please try later.
All right, so we lost them. And she did say there's a network issue going on right now, so we're going to try and get them back on the phone lines. It's very rarely, in the last few years that we've had these connectivity problems with Ethiopia. So we're not phased. We're going to continue the conversation. Reminding you that this is happening in Ethiopia. Ras Tafari, the Majesty, and the Movement exhibition is happening in Ethiopia. And believe me, it's a gathering of the people, because they are coming, Rastafarians, Pan-Africanists, African-centered people are coming from across the world and making their way to Ethiopia. Aldith, let us go to Ethiopia. All right? Write it down. Let's go. Let's do this. I'll do the radio side. You'll do the TV side. Can't get better than that. Because I've been wondering about this, It's an exhibition. It's going to need you, right? I can do the... So the exhibition is a parallel chronicle of the Majesty from birth in 1892 to the coup in 1974, and the story of struggle and development of the Rastafari movement from 1886, birth of Mwalimu Marcus Garvey, to 2012, the victory of Adwa, historic crowning of both emperor and empress, abolishment of slavery, invasion of Italy, UN speech in 1963 against colonialism, the Majesty's relationship with African leaders and luminaries from the Honorable Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah to Madiba Nelson Mandela, and the Majesty's role in the development of the Organization of African Unity, amongst other historic moments that resonated. Oh, this is Jelani. Okay, hi, Jelani. And you're very good for this, I'm telling you. I don't know if you've been listening, but we have been talking to Dr. Desta Megu, and we lost that connection in Ethiopia, because we're talking about Rastafari, the Majesty, and the movement. It's one of the biggest things to me that's going to be happening on the continent of Africa this year. Very, very excited about it. But I know one aspect of this is also an aspect that you are overseeing here in terms of the forum. Can you tell us a little bit about that? That's going to be happening there, the discussions?
Yes, Sister Andrea. On the 24th of May, there is a forum planned. The call for papers went out quite late, because initially this was only to be an exhibition. But because of the gathering, it was thought that papers reflecting similar themes would be critical as a post-exhibition process. So I offered to coordinate this. The conference has the same theme, Ras Tafari, the Majesty, and the movement. And we're inviting persons who would be able to support their own passage and upkeep to submit abstracts before the 31st of March, which is, it gives them about 10 more days, or a little less than that.
And what's the word limit on the abstract?
Word limit, 150 to 200 words. And the themes relate to the words, the works, the tours of His Majesty, the visits to the Caribbean and elsewhere, or the experiences that people have had with the occurrence of the carnation and all of what has transpired. Transpired since then.
Yes.
If persons are interested, they can write an email to rastafariconference@gmail.com, and further information can be had from there. I think it's also posted on Facebook, etc.
All right.
It really is hoping to complement the overall. The exhibition has been billed as one of the 52 must-do things this year, 2014. This was something which was indicated by Yahoo at the start of the year.
Yes.
So in a sense, it is considered to be a very, very significant event on the continent.
We can feel that, my brother Jelani. We can feel that. I just went to the Facebook page. I got and interestingly enough, Ras Jelani Niah, you didn't tell me, but
Yeah, I thought you heard, Andre. You are running Africa.
Muta kept saying to me, hear about the big thing that going on in Ethiopia. A long time I said to me, hear about the big thing. It's an exhibition, man. It's a big thing, man. And I went and I Googled it in front of Muta, the exhibition in Ethiopia. But Muta never told me the title of it, So now we're going to find it. So I said, Muta, you sure it's not the Smithsonian thing? He said, no, it's not the Smithsonian. It's a big thing, man. A big thing going on in Ethiopia. He's been telling me that for weeks. But interestingly enough, I got a correspondence from a Jamaica High Commission in South Africa asking if IRFM would support an exhibition in Ethiopia.
Okay.
And that's how we learned about it, yes.
The Jamaican High Commission, which was set up, has been accredited to a number of countries, including Ethiopia. And I think the idea is that they understand. You see, Andrea, just as how the Smithsonian exhibition was able to unify a diasporan community that was connected to Ethiopia. So the Jamaicans, the Ethiopians, and the Pan-Africans gathered.
Yes.
This exhibition here now it revisits His Majesty's significance in a climate where he has almost been erased. So it is a kind of catharsis for Ethiopia to honor the emperor, and that honor has come by way of Rastafari administration and organization. So Dr. Desta Medu has been one of the key persons. She has been living there since the Africa Unite concert.
Right, yes.
And in a sense, her ability to coordinate this exhibition demonstrates the significance of the repatriate and the kinds of contribution that we're making there. So we have been able to resurrect His Imperial Majesty to the level where he is now being honored by his own country in the form of an international exhibition.
And I really like this global feel to it, where you can literally see Pan-Africanists and African-centered people and Rastafarians from across the world just kind of focusing and zooming in on Ethiopia. For me, a really, really good feeling. I think we should seize this moment. This is going to be a historical moment. This is going to be a moment that I don't think we'll have again. So this is a time, I think. You know when a moment has arrived, Jelani. This is one of them.
The idea was to do this around African Liberation Day.
Jelani, let me interrupt you because me and you are brethren and you live in Jamaica. Can I go back to Ethiopia and I'll call you right back?
Certainly.
All right, hang up. All right. Let's return to Ethiopia, where Dr. Desta Medu, my producer Joy Morgan, is working really, really hard, running up and down to say, we have them. All right, so let's go to Ethiopia. Let's go to Ethiopia. Send me that call. All right, Rastafari, the Majesty, and the movement. Dr. Desta? Are you back with me?
No, the Ras Danija.
Ras Danija, my brother. I'm not going to ask you many questions because... Yeah, we understand that we have this connectivity problem. So I'm going to let you talk about the exhibition. Just go right ahead. If I have to interrupt, I'll interrupt. But tell us about what the format is going to be, what the dates are, who's involved, what people will be able to see, and specifically for those people who are thinking of coming into Ethiopia, what's there, how they can do that. Let us get an itinerary also. Go ahead, Ras Danija.
All right, I'd just like to say a warm LOVE to all the IRA FM listeners. My role in the exhibition, titled Rastafari, the Majesty and the Movement, is the chief curator, meaning the way we present the show. But in terms of the whole perception of this particular exhibition, the Rastafari movement, we would say in the last 30, 40 years, has become an incredible social dynamic that worldwide we have people who are now from all races calling themselves the followers of Emperor Haile Selassie I. But here in Ethiopia, we seem to be unaware of what the movement really is. You know, we are getting misidentified.
Mm-hmm.
So this particular exhibition at the National Museum
is
really to speak to the African people.
Yes.
And display what the Rastafari movement really is.
And it does, and what it does,
we are a Pan-African.
And what it does to my brother is that it provides a space and a platform for African people to gather, to come together around the Majesty and the Movement exhibition. But also we just spoke with Jelani Niah talking about the forum that's going to take place. We saw the itinerary that you've posted to Facebook. Let us talk quickly about that itinerary. One of the things that really, kind of sticking out with me and that I'm loving is a multilingual Nyabingi in Tota Mountain. You talk about what's happening at Wanda Gannett, what's happening in Shashamane, and the opportunities that are available.
Yeah.
All of this happening around the exhibition. Talk to us about the itinerary.
Well, I will tell you something. I think the best person to do that, the person who is actually her role,
is
to coordinate the itinerary.
All right.
Let me hand you over to Mama Desta.
And then we come back to you. All right, we're in Ethiopia. Go ahead, my sister. Yes.
Yes. What was the question? I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
All right, sorry, Sister Desta. We're talking about the itinerary. Wanted to look a little bit about the itinerary because we don't want to get disconnected again and don't have that information. So talk about what's going to be happening. Yes.
Okay. Essentially, we're hoping that most delegates will begin arriving between the 21st and the 22nd. So by the 23rd, we will begin the symposium, discussions, and other ancillary programs, including even screenings. Mm-hmm. And then the Nyabingi Eyes is scheduled for the Friday evening, the 23rd, up in Entoto, as you mentioned. So we're looking forward to that.
Yes.
Followed by a possible concert. We haven't confirmed it yet, but a concert on Saturday, and then the grand opening on Sunday, following a special service at the Trinity Cathedral, which was built by the Majesty.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll have an 11 o'clock opening on that Sunday.
Yes.
So following that now, we will be going on to Shashamane because there's a satellite exhibition in Shashamane, which Sister Waleta Medhin and Ras Moye are facilitating in Shashamane.
Yes.
And so we would spend a couple of days in Shashamane. There's going to be a bazaar as well as the Shashamane experience documented through photos and a narrative.
Wow.
And then we'll be heading to Harar. Harar, there is the Ras McConnell Museum, which was the Majesty's home as a Deja's match when he was, over 14 years old.
Yes, yes.
So that place has been turned into a museum, and not far from there, about another hour or so, is the Ejesogoro Cathedral or church where the Majesty was born. And so we have Brother Mulgeta, who facilitates the Ejesogoro trip for Majesty every birth strong for the Majesty. He's facilitating that. So there's a lot to do, and even in Addis itself, there's visits to the Institute of Ethiopian Study, the Palace. There's visits to the African Union, who is also helping to facilitate the symposium, likewise the Ghana Embassy. So there's just so much that is going to be going on during this historic time. Even the New York Times has called it the blockbuster exhibit of the year.
I saw that.
Addis number 13.
Yes, Addis Ababa as number 13 of a list of places for 2014 named in the New York Times. And this event itself identified by the New York Times as the blockbuster event of the year. So what about those persons what about accommodation, packages and so on? I see that the people in the UK seem to have their things together. We're getting on this late, but I know that there are people in Jamaica who are going to want to go. Tell us how we go about that.
Absolutely. Well, let me first say this. Where the UK is concerned, we actually have a committee there that's headed by Ras Cos, Ras Blue, Ras Shango, Sister Stella. They've been working on the project with us for the last almost 3 years.
Yes.
And indeed, they are going to be contributing the UK experience to the overall exhibit. Now, how you can get involved, again, if you go to the Facebook site, you can certainly send us a message. And we've got one brother here, Ras Abi, who is helping to facilitate the tours. So there are buses and vehicles and everything is available, as are hotels, because luckily for us, that is not a peak season for conference or for tourists.
Right.
So through the auspices of the Ministry of Culture and Tourism and just private sector, everybody being very excited. I mean, it's very electric what's going on here, because can you imagine the first time any major exhibition on the Emperor Haile Selassie I, and these, red, gold, and green wearing, folks that, undeniably say, that live.
I feel you, my sister. I feel you. I'm telling you the truth. All right. So I wanted to. We're coming. I have a politician in the studio with me. He's not here as a politician. He's here as a motivator. He's a member of parliament for part of St. Anne. And I'm going to ask him if he can sponsor me. He's sitting right here. He's probably hearing me right now.
Yeah, man.
You understand, my sister Esther?
Andrew, before they cut off,
yes,
there's a quick thing I want to. The National Museum opened the archives to us to use some of the paintings that were done from the 1920s to the 1960s. And I book a painting in there, M. Plano. Can you believe? From Mortimer Plano. And we verified it with Ras Jelani, who is facilitating, by the way, the symposium to the U.S.
We just spoke to Jelani while we're trying to get you back. So he's told us about the symposium. All right. So you found in just going through
Mortimer Plano painting.
Okay, brilliant. That sounds
original in the National Museum of Ethiopia archives.
Yes.
So we've identified it through, again, Professor Jelani's support, and it will also be in the exhibition along with some original Daniel Hartman prints.
Yes.
And plus installations. We're doing a Jamaica culture yard. So Ambassador Norma, who is, Ambassador to Ethiopia, but based in South Africa, has been really helpful to trying to get the awareness.
I know, they contacted us. All right, let me just say a quick word to Ras Danija again, but we'll keep in touch with you. I'm quite sure that I'm going to hear you on the cutting edge, and I'm going to hear you on the stepping razor, and back again on the Running African before this is all over, because we're coming. We're heading to Ethiopia.
Fabulous.
Let me just say a quick word to
and we're working on a sponsor with Radisson to try get some rooms. So if they'll do the fair, we can cover things.
Okay, brilliant.
That's my word.
Sounds good, because listen, I have a team, as we are talking about this, my team in the Netherlands, we have our camera lady, journalist in the Netherlands, Aldis Honker.
All right.
Who signed up to this.
Done.
Selector Princess, where are you? In New York? Well, she's also on this as another journalist. So you have 3 journalists already now. We have a team,
All right.
There
you go. In Ethiopia, we say back meaning it done. Hold on, my love.
There you go. Okay.
Give thanks.
All right. So Ras Danija, who's who's a curator for the exhibition.
Yes.
Ras Danija, give us a quick idea of what people will see in the exhibition once they get there.
Well, the way the exhibition is organized and displayed, it's chronological order in terms of the Majesty from the birth, 1892, right through. And, we're doing it in 10-year decades in terms of, his life. Then, in parallel, we have also the Rastafari movement, who started, as we know, way back when, with the doctrine of Ethiopianism. So there is all of that which will be there. There will be installation. We found a painting because we also have access to the National Archive. And there are some out of this world artwork of the Majesty of the Ethiopian Orthodox religion.
Wow.
That in itself will be the development of the movement and the Majesty. We also have a fantastic installation, which is giving us that middle passage, the ships and the decks and below the deck.
Okay, so there's going to be a recreation of that, and this is going to be brilliant because I don't think this has ever been done in Ethiopia, a country that was not colonized, and so an understanding of that. And I understand you have 2,000 square feet of exhibition space. for
yes,
this exhibition itself.
It's very large because it's not just it's a worldwide participation. We have Mexico, we have people sending in their section in terms of their own design and exhibition, and we then slot the pieces from around the world and create this massive exhibition in the National Museum.
And it's running once again from May.
As I said.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, from Liberation Day.
May 20th.
And it will be there for 30 days, yes. And it will be there for 30 days.
And people who are interested should be coming in from the 21st. There's a registration process and so on. So people who are interested.
Well, I would say, yes, I would say to everyone, please don't miss it, because the Ethiopian people are Ethiopian people.
Yes.
Really have no experience of slavery.
Okay.
No,
but that's what I was saying before. Exactly. And this is why the return is so important.
Learned about it.
Yes.
They've learned about it.
Yes.
They've learned about it.
My brother, I do have to...
But they need now this.
I do have to go. Just finish that sentence.
Yes, I was saying at this time they want to more than actually learn about it.
Yes.
This time it's the full experience of it through an art exhibition.
All right, thank you very much, Ras Tafari. We'll talk to you some more as the time goes on, and we'll definitely keep in touch with you. Ras Tafari, the Majesty and the movement happening in Ethiopia, and it really is a movement. Thank you, my brother.
Give
thanks.
Love.
My sister Janet Smith and Ernest Smith, I see you, and can you make it? Let me know, I see you. All right, so we're going to be going into we're going to be speaking with a Member of Parliament. Yes, he's a Member of Parliament. And you know how we say that the PNP and the JLP are two-headed monster. He knows that. Hey, Dr. Dayton Campbell. He's not here as a member of either. He's here because he has a story, a motivating story that we've been telling here at IRFM on Sex-Wise. And we thought, let us take it into this space and talk about this story, especially against the background of so many young people who are becoming disillusioned or throwing up their hands and elderly people and older people saying, adults saying that, poverty, the poverty is so much, father not dear, and become father not dear, cannot succeed. And you're thrown in the gauntlet literally in terms of pulling yourselves up by the bootstrap and making it work. So in the studio we have with us a young black African Jamaican who has joined us. He is a medical doctor. He is a student of law. He's a law student right now at the Norman Manley Law School. And you know him better probably as a Member of Parliament for St. Ann Northwestern. He's a past president of the Jamaica Medical Doctors Association, a proud father, as he'll tell us, and a believer in his people and in Jamaica. His father was scheduled to join him, but we understand that he's not here, but we'll find out. Dr. Dayton Campbell, thank you very much.
Hi, good morning, and good morning to your listeners.
Welcome once again. First of all, Dr. Campbell, I'm going to ask you just right off, what's your age? How old are you?
I turned 31 on Wednesday.
Happy birthday, belated.
Well, thank you.
Yes. I told you he was a youth. All right, so here's a young man who has achieved so much and then is gone. How do you manage to do so much? How long did you study in medical school? How many years?
Well, let me just clarify something that was said earlier. I'm actually doing the law degree with the University of London.
Oh, it's the University of London at Norman Manley, right?
Right.
Okay, so...
medical school was 5 years. Persons normally describe it as 7 years. I think it's because they account for the 2 years that you're doing the A-levels.
Okay.
But medical school was 5 years, after which we do internship. And I did that at the St. Anne's Bay Hospital in 2008, 2009.
So you left right out of high school into medical school?
I went from Ferncourt to Brownstone Community College and then to the university, yes.
Right. So, in essence, you haven't, since you've left Ferncourt, you haven't really stopped studying in terms of being in the formal school environment?
Probably the internship year I wasn't in.
And it was still, because it's internship, so it's still a learning process. All right. So from high school, Ferncourt High School, to Brownstown Community College, that was for the A-levels?
Correct.
And then to the University of the West Indies, medicine. So why did you decide to go on to law?
Well, it is something that I've always wanted to do, and it is probably a part of the problem with the educational system, in that persons expect individuals to just go into certain areas. Say at Ferncourt, which everybody knows that I'm very proud to be a part of the alumni of Ferncourt. But when I was there, they said to me that you're going into science when you reach fourth form. It wasn't a choice given as to you doing a mix of subjects. It was just based on somebody
You were excelling at science, and so they said
right,
science.
And somebody said you're going into science. And at that time, I guess you went along with it. But after that, I realized that I had some interest in politics. And I mean, being a part of the legislature is about making laws. So I thought it appropriate to at least go ahead.
So in other words, you don't take this thing lightly?
No, I don't.
When did you decide that, when did you know that you wanted to enter political life?
When I realized that it was probably the best vehicle to realize change. I mean, I know a lot of persons have problems with it and with certain aspects of it, and I do too. But what I'd encourage persons to do is to try and extirpate, to root up that part of it and get rid of it. That is the corrupt element. But politics in and of itself is a beautiful thing, and it's something that is important. If you're trying to realize change. When I was the president of the Medical Doctors Association, you're lobbying for something and you can't get it done. But if you're involved in the politics, especially if you're a part of the executive, you may be able to move swiftly to get that change. Look at the change with the ban on smoking in public space. That is something that most doctors, if not all, would agree with. But for them to get the change from that side would be difficult. But being a part of the legislature, then it's easier to influence that change.
Okay, so you're really unique in that regard, in terms of understanding that this is just more than sitting, and it's more than just going to Parliament, that there is much more that you have to know, have to do. You don't have to answer.
Right, because that would be...
I could see that you were about to either not answer or tell me that stop the foolishness, right? So that's rhetoric. All right, so let's move on. All right, I want to talk about your life, Dr. Dayton Campbell, because you had, and here you are, not unique at all in terms of your experiences. Where I think you're unique is what you did with the experiences, although many people are doing that. All right, so let's talk about that. Your father was absent a lot of times for a specific reason from home. Why was this?
Well, he was away I think he has been away for more than half of my lifetime thus far. Well, he has been away for more than half of my lifetime thus far. It's because, I mean, the typical situation, well, if not typical, situation that happens so often in these areas where persons get involved with, what do you call it, trafficking, smuggling of marijuana, and got in trouble with the law, and that caused him not to be around for quite a long time.
When you say quite a long time, what do you mean? When did he?
This last time was almost 10 years, 9 years plus almost 10 years, and he returned last week Friday.
So your dad has been in prison for the last time here for 10 years,
roughly,
and
10
just
years.
Came back home last week Friday. All right, and you are 31.
That is correct.
Right, and before that, he was also in prison before.
Yeah.
Talk to us about that.
Well, I mean, the influence of my father is great, and I mean, I'm not one of those individuals that gives up on anybody or try to judge people. And the fact of the matter is that he got into trouble, but at the heart of it was his desire to assist his family. He may have taken the wrong vehicle to do so, but that was what was at the heart of it. And the fact is that the value of education is something that was instilled by him in his own manner, but he's somebody who's very strong on the virtues of education. And I think he's somebody who would have gone far had he been given a chance, because I do believe a lot of the cerebral potency that the family displays comes from him, because he's really somebody who's very sharp. Just recently, in a conversation, somebody was saying to me, it's amazing how similar we are in how we speak. He'll tell you about something in the 70s and he's quoting the statistics, he's telling the exact date when this happened. So it's somebody that is very cerebral, and it's just unfortunate that based on his circumstances, having not gotten that chance to go further in education, that he had to go along that path.
Right,
but he's now out, ready for a renewed life. And
he was scheduled to be here today, but he didn't come. Why?
I think he has a little bit of cold feet. He probably doesn't want to be thrusted into the spotlight like that.
All right, and that we understand. How young were you when the first time you recall that your father went to prison?
Well, the first time, the earliest memories that I have are not of him there. I can remember that he came when I was about 7 or something, somewhere there, and then he left again when I was in high school at Ferncourt, and he came back whilst I was at the community college, and then he left again when I was at UWI.
So all this time when he was coming and leaving, it was for the same thing. It was marijuana possession or marijuana sales, and he was ending up in prison. Do you and now that we're having all this debate about legalization and decriminalization of marijuana, it must hold some special significance for your dad and for yourself.
It does. We might have different views, and I know a lot of persons have misinterpreted what I have said on the whole issue of marijuana. The thing is that I support medicinal use of marijuana wholeheartedly, and I want to see it being even legalized for that area, where I can have my farmers up in Bamboo and Orange Hill and all over Sturgeon and these places cultivating and earning the lucrative returns from it. What I don't support is the personal use of it, especially by youngsters, because of the adverse effects of it. I don't believe, though, that they should be given a criminal record, because I think it is something of, it's an habit, it's not a crime. And these persons, something has to be put in place for them to have rehabilitation.
Well, I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. We too many of our young people, whether it's cigarette or ganja, but this dependence on ganja, especially for the young people. Adults do what you want, but for young people, we have to somehow find a way to make it so that they don't think that this is just as though we don't want to see them smoking from church leaf to any kind of leaf to cigarettes, that we have to talk about whether or not the decriminalization or the legalization of ganja must ensure, the extent to which it must ensure that young people do not have the kind of access that they now have, actually.
Absolutely.
All right, so I do agree with that. All right, so your mother then played an important role in your life.
Yes, man. She's an unsung hero, and I think she should be given some award, some national award.
What's her name?
For her contribution. Gwendolyn.
Miss Gwen? Is she listening?
Yeah, she is.
Miss Good morning, Miss Gwen. Congratulations again, Miss Gwen. All right, so you're saying that she's an unsung hero?
Yeah, she is. And I think even my dad told her recently that he's extremely proud of the way in which she has held things together. Females are a strong set, and I think we as a society, we may have underestimated their value for too long, but they hold a significant role and place in the society in holding the family together, similar to our thread would hold a fabric together. Because she, with all of the unfortunate circumstances that were going on around, she was somehow able to hold it together and to still keep her children motivated.
How did she hold it together? I know some of this is in hindsight, because as a young boy, I don't know if you say all of it, But in hindsight and what you experienced as a child?
I think I could see it from then because
Really?
I said I can remember telling her when I was about 9 or 10 that because of her hard work that I was going to, one day she would be able to spend my money and relax. I'd be able to take care of her.
And it come through, eh?
It came to pass.
Congratulations. Yes, word sound is power. You know how it goes.
Indeed.
Yes,
but you could see the sacrifice that she was making. And I've said to persons that if you hold her hand, it will give you that story of the sacrifice that she has made because she worked as a domestic helper for years. And you could see that she was putting out all of that effort just so that we could have access to education.
How many children?
Well, 5, but both my mom and dad share 3 of us. And I want to commend the others as well because I am the public figure, I'm the one who is normally interviewed, but my sisters have done well. And the eldest, she passed away last year, unfortunately. But we all graduated in 2008 at the said graduation from the university. I do believe that must be a first.
Are you serious?
All 3 of us were seated in the same graduation from the university.
How did your mother manage? How did she contain that?
I don't know, but it was a special moment. It
Wow,
was
so
really
2008,
yes.
at that time your father was still in prison.
Yeah.
And 3 of you,
all 3 of us,
sitting in the same, at UWI. Tell us about that. So you were graduating as what?
I was graduating from medicine. My elder sister was graduating with first class honors from nursing. And the younger one was graduating with her bachelor's in chemistry. She has gone on to do her master's in Trinidad, and she got honors, and she's back now. She was away in Fiji for a year on a scholarship, and she's back now at the university completing her PhD.
What a powerful family.
Well,
what a powerful family. Bearing in mind, with or without the context, it is really a powerful family. So let us talk about the context a little bit more. So your mother, 5 children in the home, and the father in prison, is still a strong family regardless, but working as a domestic helper. What years we're talking about, and what was the salary like at that time, or the minimum wage?
I mean, it's like being employed but still in poverty. At that time, you pretty much work just enough to what they call hand to mouth. You just work enough to pay some of your bills and to feed your family. It's really.
What was it like as a child? Tell me. Food wise, clothes wise, shoes wise.
There were times when it was difficult. I'm not going to say that it was. There are times when it was real difficult. As I say, I can remember persons asking me when I was going to school at some time if I took my measurement in water. Children can be cruel. Children can be cruel.
And for those listening overseas, those on the internet at irfm.net, you just mean that in pants was very short. Yes. So you go it out and you couldn't buy a new one.
Right.
That's what it was.
They can be cruel. If you had... And on Fridays, you probably would wear the oldest of the khaki pants that you have. And you may pull out the hem at the foot, and you know that part would be new.
Well, of course.
And you wouldn't be able to get out that crease in the pants either, no matter how much you iron it.
No matter what water you put on it, not all together. Yes.
So, there are persons who ridiculed you, and they did all of these things. But, my message to young people is to always say to them that education is a redemptive tool, and it really doesn't matter what is going on or where you're coming from, that your dreams are just as valid as anybody else. And persons have to realize that there is an opportunity that is granted to them, and that is access to education. As long as you have that access to education, you can use that as the vehicle for upward social mobility. So persons have to be strong to get over the unfortunate, because so many persons, and I come in contact with them so often, so many persons across the constituency where the parents are really trying, but they just don't have the ability to do as much as they would want to. And the children have to take on some of that responsibility in understanding where they're coming from, and that they're trying to move an entire generation forward.
And this is a critical point that you make, because and you're talking from your own experience as a child, understanding as a child that some of that responsibility in making it work, that some of that was yours. How much of that did you think was yours, and how did you do this?
A lot of it. I mean, you're coming home into a situation where it's not like when I get home, me and my sisters, that we can ask our parents for assistance with the homework, because they've gone to that level. They're pushing us to go there, and when we got into high school, that was our first, so they're pushing us to get there, but you can't get that assistance, so you now have to understand and accept the responsibility that you have been given an opportunity that the previous generation wasn't given, and you have to grasp it with both hands and make the best of it. And
so you understood this, you reasoned this out?
I did.
As a child, at high school, at Fern Court?
I did. I'm an old man stuck in a young boy's
I
body.
think so. I think so. And so what were you saying to yourself, reasoning this out? What were you saying to yourself?
Well, as I said, my aim was that I must be able to take care of my mom, because this woman is going and she's trying. I can feel the what they call corns in her hands. You can see the sacrifice that she's making. And my thing is that I must be able to come out of this situation and be able to take care of her. I was also adamant. And I love and respect both my parents, but I was also adamant that I didn't want to go down the road that my father had taken, because I didn't want to be locked away from society at any point in time. So I was adamant that I would go and work hard so that I can take care of myself and my family without having to go along that line.
So what would you say to young boys and girls, boys in particular, because we've had many conversations with young boys about just a similar situation to yours, absent father, for whatever reason the father is not there, and so it's a mother alone, but they somehow feel as if they are entitled and they should not be working to balance the thing in the home. They shouldn't be putting out that much education. They throw that out the door because it's poverty, and some adults think that way too. I mean, what would you say to these families?
Well, in like boxing and those things, they have a thing when when persons surrender and they throw in a white towel. But I have a little saying that I say weakness compels strength, and I said never throw in the towel, but use it to wipe the sweat and continue.
Yes.
Persons have to understand. You have to understand that, irrespective of where they're coming from, and I'm not the only one, neither is my family. There are so many Jamaicans who have withstood adversity and have gone on to do, but persons have to take a decision that they want more out of life. And I find that too many of them are willing to just accept their reality, but not to use it as a platform for further growth. All they do is accept it, to say, boy, things are rough and I can't do this and I can't do that, and they just don't do anything else. When I was going to school, there are days I got like $60 or $80, and the fear would consume all of that. But we went to school just the same, because we realized that if you go to school and you do well, you're likely to be able to get a good job when you're finished. And to move on, so persons have to forget about, accept it and acknowledge where you're coming from, but don't use it as an excuse going forward. You have to figure out a path as to how to move from where you are to the next level.
And you speak highly of your father. Your father was in prison. So that's why he was absent. But you're saying regardless, his presence was still felt.
I speak highly of him because, as I said, he, from a tender age, I got the impression and the message from him clearly that failure was not an option.
As a matter of fact, he said something to you. What was it again? What was it he said to you again?
He said that if I didn't pass the common entrance, that he'd drop me on my head. So,
and you're taking serious.
I figured that.
Oh goodness, I didn't know I would laugh 2 times around, but it really is funny.
I figured
so he put the fear of everything in you.
It was his way of trying to motivate me to do well, but you got the impression from him from early out that we were not going to be allowed to fail. I can remember once he called me and my older sister together to do some math, and that was when we were younger. I was probably about 6 and she's about 8, and he wanted us to do some math, and The first one that he asked, I got it, and he whipped her. And after that, I couldn't get one right because she...
Why not?
Because she got all of them right, because she was...
Okay, she's not going to take it again.
she was afraid of being whipped again. But he got the message across, and in a serious way. He got the message across that... education is important, and that we can do better than has been done in the family before, and that we ought to strive to do better.
I'm going to take a quick break. Why are you not in the Ministry of Education? The Africa Forum, Running African. We were scheduled to speak with Dr. Sonia Stanley Niah right here, and then Dr. Dayton Campbell was scheduled, as we said earlier, to return to take telephone calls. So we're going to go straight up to news, and then we'll have Dr. Sonia Stanley Niah. So we won't be able to take your phone calls this morning, but Dr. Dayton Campbell is always available to come in, and we'll invite him to come back to take those telephone calls at another time. In the meantime, we continue the conversation. Dr. Campbell, of course, is a medical doctor. He's past president of the Jamaica Medical Doctors Association. He is currently a law student at the University of London. He's member of Parliament for St. Ann Northwestern, and a father, a motivator, we must say. So why aren't you with the Ministry of Education?
Well, the issue is this. That is the prerogative of the Prime Minister.
Does the Prime Minister know your story?
Yes, he does.
Okay.
But I want to make this point as well, that when I ran for Member of Parliament. Mm-hmm. I didn't run for Minister, and I do believe
that...
Yes,
very good point.
I do believe that I came into politics young, not very familiar with the political landscape and the inner runnings of the politics. And I do believe that it would have been unfair to appoint me to a ministry at that point in time. It would have been unfair to my constituents, who would have needed more time for me to spend more time on the ground, getting to know them, to put things in place. Because I'm not in politics for a one term, I'm in this thing for a long haul to make change in it. So I'm not being precautious in running down after an executive position at this point in time. Plus, additionally, I want persons to understand, persons who are in politics, persons who are desirous of going into politics, that being a member of Parliament is enough platform for you to realize change. In relation to my own constituency, I've gone in there and tried to be my own little Minister of Education. We have a very good educational product in the constituency, where we have 300 persons in night school doing mathematics, English, social studies, office procedure, and principles of business. And we have 850 persons doing skills training in about 13 different areas.
When you say we have, what do you mean?
As a constituency.
Oh, really?
That have developed those programs, and that is offered in the constituency.
Okay, that's brilliant. Yes.
So persons have a real opportunity to make a change. And it is sad that there are still individuals out there who would tell you that education cannot be eaten. I was at a meeting, and a man came to me and said to me that, Doc, with all you're saying, if you don't buy some zinc, the children will be, when it rains, they'll get wet and they still can't go to school. And I try to make the point to him that even though it can't be eaten, if you do get the education, it can allow you to purchase anything you want to eat.
Yes.
And it can also allow you to purchase your own zinc. You can even decide that you don't want zinc on your roof.
It's a tool towards success. And so that, but you talk about education and involvement in education.
From the government, and we know that we don't have as much resources as we need currently. So I have several things that I do. One, on a Monday, I have this thing, the mobile clinic that I had proposed. I haven't gotten the unit, and I want to make this now, this public appeal. As if anyone is out there would want to assist with donating an ambulance so we could use as a mobile clinic, we'd welcome it.
Yes.
But what we do on a Monday is that we go into a different community. We might use a school or a churchyard or somewhere, and we actually do a health fair there, where we are able to do the blood pressure, the blood sugar. We examine these persons, we write their prescriptions, we sign them up for NHF or JADEP, so they can get their medications at a reduced cost, and we do all of this free of charge.
And you do this every Monday?
On Mondays, yes.
Every Monday?
On Monday, yeah.
Wow.
Well, if there's something unforeseen, then we can't do it. But,
but most Mondays in any case.
Right, it's a Monday venture. During the summer, we go from community to community doing the back-to-school medicals free of charge. We've done 2,520 of them in the 2 years, and this summer we'll continue doing them. And we expect that we'll do roughly about 2,000 this year because it has been increasing rapidly. The first year was 850, and the second year 1,500 plus. And on Saturdays, we've stopped it for the last 2 months, but on Saturdays what we do is that we use the office, the MP's office, as a medical practice where we do the same checks and sign up the same forms free of charge. And that's
so whereas most MP's office, you see them close on a Saturday, you're saying yours is open on a Saturday for medical service?
Yes.
That's commendable. That really is commendable. Where did you get this idea from? Did this come, from other areas, or
no?
Is it something that you thought through and said, "This is what I can do"?
It didn't come from other areas. It's sitting down, looking at the needs of the people and looking at what I can offer to them. And I say, some persons have a lot of expectations of any politician, really, and you can't meet them. So I'm looking at what ways I can come up with to at least offer some assistance. I have the medical knowledge and the know-how to do these things. And I have some Nurse Mills and Nurse Campbell and Nurse Jackson and those persons who assist me. And I want to commend them as well for volunteering of their time to assist in the process. And also Dr. Armstrong, who comes along to assist me on alternate weekends.
Brilliant. What role do you think your upbringing, your background, the struggles, the successes, the triumphs play in how you deal with those issues in your constituency, education and health in particular?
Everything. It has everything to do with it because I understand fully what it means to want to do something and not having the ability to do it. So the medicals, that's why I came up with the idea of doing the medicals, because I understand that if my mother had to go to pay for medical for all three of us when we were in high school, it would be difficult. Because she would have to find $1,000 or $1,500 for all three, would have to find transportation costs, would have to find lunch. So what we say is that we're going into the community. So all the children have to do, when we go to Bamboo, they just come to the square, to the church in the square. They can walk to it and they get it. Normally when we go to Bamboo, it's over 200 persons. And we go to different communities. So we'll go about 15 communities across the constituency. So we're taking the care to them so that it can reduce that cost to them. And I think persons are very appreciative of it. And I don't operate in a partisan way. As in, for me, PNP and JLP, the difference between the supporters means nothing outside of the political season. When you're in a
so you're not checking a list to see who vote and
not at all. I'm not checking a list to see who vote. I'm not asking which party the person is affiliated with. There have been persons who come to get treated and to get their examinations wearing their green bands, and I sit there, I talk with them very well, and we share a few jokes, and I do the checks for them, and they go on their way.
What does your mother say about where you are, what you've achieved? What is she saying to you?
I think she's still a little bit surprised.
Yeah.
But she's pleased, and as I say, I want to credit both of my parents for the different roles that they've played. And I don't want to single out either one. I want to commend both of them for the roles that they have played. But I think she's very pleased, and as I said, she's pleased of all her children, because it's not just me. I tend to get the spotlight, but I really want to commend the others because they have done well. And, iron really sharpens iron. I mean, growing up in that environment where everybody is trying to achieve, then you're then forced to do your best because you don't want to be left behind. So all three of us would want to achieve, so that we can all be successful.
I'm going to give you a last a minute or so to talk to our young people, to talk to our families about success, about achieving despite the odds.
I want to say to the young persons, and normally when I have a visual, there's a little activity that I carry out when I have a visual, where I take out, say, a $5,000 or $1,000 note, and I ask the persons if they want it, and they tend to jump and say yes, they're very much in need of it. I then tend to crush it and to jump all over it, and then I take it up and I ask them again if they still want it. And most persons will still say yes, they do. And the point that I try to bring across with that exercise is that in life, there are going to be persons who are going to crush you and walk all over you and say all sorts of things about you. Whether it's where you're coming from, whether it's how you look, whether it's what your sex is, whatever they use to marginalize and to discriminate against you. But the point is that irrespective of where persons are coming from and irrespective of what people do to you, you haven't lost your value and you're still valuable and the society still has a place for you. And I want to say to persons who may be in the position like my father is, that don't give up on yourself or give up on your children. That even if everybody else has given up on us, based on where we're coming from, we cannot afford to give up on ourselves. So all the youngsters out there is a redemptive tool that is available and is accessible. It is called education, and if you hop onto that vehicle, you can move into a different social class.
Dr. Dayton Campbell, the future looks good with you. The future looks good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming in. I appreciate that. Dr. Dayton Campbell there, medical doctor, past president of the Jamaica Medical Doctors Association, member of parliament for St. Ann Northwestern, proud father. We didn't talk much about his own children and his own family, but we'll do that another time. And now also a law student. The news coming up right after this, and right after news it will be IRFM Sunday Sports Diary. But once again, just to say thanks to Dr. Dayton Campbell for coming in and for helping to motivate. And I know that you were motivated. Parents and teachers and students and young ones and older ones, I know that you were highly, highly motivated this morning by just listening to Dr. Dayton Campbell. We can't remember asking for sponsor. We can't need an ambulance. You know, we have to look at our own sponsorship. All right. News coming up right after this. We were talking about Molimu Marcus Garvey's home, and we were saying that, so many promises about renovating the home, about claiming the land, etc., etc., and that a few years ago, just before Bruce Golding demitted office, land was broken, ground was broken for the renovation of a home and for a museum to be developed there. And the Chase Fund was there. Chase Fund representative, and they had said at the time that they had given earmarked monies for the renovation. And Devon mentioned the Chase Fund's annual report 2011-2012. And so here's carried that report, and thanks to the brother who also posted it to my inbox to me that as an attachment, so I was able to read it. Thank you very much. So Devon, I have the book in my hand, as you can see now.
Yes.
It's Transforming Life, Chase Fund, Annual Report 2012. And it is true. It says on page 44, because they're listing projects, and all the projects that they're funded mentioned in this book. And the year ended March 31, 2012. Historic sites and monuments are some of the projects that they got involved with. For example, the restoration of Holy Trinity Cathedral, they gave 1.5 million for that. The renovation of a Falmouth historic building, they gave 8 million for that, and so on. Their Kampong Maroon Parade Ground, they gave a 7 million that? Oh, that look like a 7 million. Well, on there. No, that's a 1 million. Okay. I mean, I can wonder about it. All right, the Ward Theatre, 5 million. And then historic sites and monuments continued. Marcus Garvey's birthplace, restoration of the building and grounds, $16 million.
Okay. Well, what is that?
Well, Devon has been trying, as an investigative journalist, to get a comment from the Chase Fund about this from Chase. He wasn't able to get anybody all of last week. I know from looking at the book that our colleague and friend, Faye Ellington, is on the board, so we probably will have to call her directly. She's Chairperson Communications Committee and member of the Arts and Culture Committee. Me just look at who me know in there.
Yes.
And I'm just saying that what happened to that 16...
Yeah. That's a good question, because I remember the days when we usually go up there to, and clean
yes.
Up there, on every April, every August 17.
We probably used to buckle up there too.
Yeah, man, we'll go up and
yes.
clean up. We have pictures of that,
Yes,
we'll
me too. It's true. You did it for true.
Yeah, we'll clean up the site and fix up and paint up the place.
Yes.
And whitewash the street.
And the UAIA put up a sign,
exactly.
and we used to buckle up there. But I know you're my husband, Millie. But it's 16 million
well,
in this statement.
if 16 million is earmarked.
I'm not earmarked. Them said this is given. This verse already. This is the annual report of money that they give out for the projects.
And the place is the same way as it is now.
Where is the $16 million? Or did Chase Fund make a mistake in their annual report? 2011, ending March 2012. March 31, 2012.
That would have been almost 2 years now, less than 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just the other day that.
So where is that $16 million?
As I said, maybe it's a mistake because.
In your annual report? Or you're gonna misplace $16 million?
That's what I'm saying. Wonder if they genuinely feel it's a typo.
Look here, the thing, it's written out like a statement, write out in English, You write out in mathematical language. Yeah. Like a statement, you have the one side where you name the thing, and the next side where the money depend, and then you have a line draw under that, and it add up and it tell you how much everything come up to.
And no word as it. So, this is very interesting,
we would like to talk to somebody from a Chase Fund about this. We're going to continue to stay on this. We weren't able to get them all of last week. Interestingly
because we heard about the wonderful works at the birthplace of Right Excellency Norman Manley, the Right Excellency.
Yes, some of that is in the book there too. Chase Fund give money for those things too. And the work has been done.
And the work has been done.
Yes, because we can see that. So where is the $16 million that Chase Fund said they give to somebody to renovate Morlemo Marcus Garvey's home? Someone will have to say.
I agree and say so quickly too.
Yes. Whether it is Chase or Bruce or Andrew or Portia or Lisa or Delia. Somebody have to tell me what happened to the $16 million that Chase Fund identify in them annual report, list in them annual report as having given for the renovation of a Morlemo Marcus Garvey's home in St. Anne's Bay.
Yeah. We need some answers and we need it fast.
Yes. So we're going to continue on this story for next week.
Yes.
So everything Irie FM?
Everything Irie FM.
Everything cool?
Yeah, everything good, man.
Yeah?
I mean, I've been very busy in recent times. I can't even lift up my hand to say hi because as I lift up my hand and say hi.
You're too wicked. You're not drawing my tongue.
And say hi.
You're not drawing my tongue, You're not drawing my tongue.
Well busy. Every time I try to get a sneak in, meet.
I'm kind of glad you said that. You know why? Because so many people have written to me.
Yes.
So many people have Facebooked me and inboxed me and tweeted and messaged and sent me emails. There's so much that I have, so many things I have to respond to.
Yes.
And I'm happy you said that so people know that I'm not lying when I tell them that I've been very busy.
Yes, I just have to pass and say hi. I mean, every time I want to make a quick sneak in, why you're too busy? It's all right. I mean,
yeah, but they kind of
timing right.
Yeah.
When the timing right.
Yeah, when the time right. You're supposed to have cool long and hours. Easy, stuff. What happened at the sporting world, man? Who get red card? Who sent off? Who never deserve to be sent off? What happened, man?
You mean yesterday in the EPL? Yeah, man, a defender, an Arsenal defender, dive like a goalkeeper and dig out the ball from going in the net, and instead of him getting sent off, it was another player who got sent off.
What does that mean?
No,
Arsenal lost terribly, don't it?
Yeah,
did they lose that game terribly?
They lost that game terribly. But it started basically, they were behind then, but it got worse for them at that point.
So that was a referee mistake?
The mistake was that he sent off the wrong player.
Have you ever seen anything like that in your life?
No, not at all.
So did somebody say to him that nobody ever said to him he's not?
Yes, the same person went to the referee and said, I am the person who did it, and the referee still held his ground.
And give the man a red card?
And give another man the red card. Yeah.
You have to check the referee there now.
Well, he apologized after the game. And
not too late.
Yeah, and all sorts of things.
So that referee is going to be benched now, I suppose?
Well, they have their systems of way of evaluating referees after each game.
It depends on something, man. All right, well, the biggest conspiracy theorist of all is me, because I say I don't think the flight will take off.
Well,
I don't think there was any plane.
You never know. You never know. Anything is anything.
I don't know. Them just tell me that there was a plane, and all of a sudden nobody can find it. So I said there was no plane, star. And then I asked me what about the families. I said, well, anything can play.
Why?
But seriously though, I mean,
this is modern aeronomical marvels.
You say this is a marvel. It's a mystery, and everybody's. When I was coming to work this morning, I was checking the news and I realized that France now said them say something. Everybody else says something.
David, but what the thing about it is that out in that part of the ocean is basically like a place where everything swoop, all garbage from everywhere come and swoop.
Right, and
in
it's a
that
massive piece.
particular
Yes.
You know,
the currents and the
everything just go in that particular area.
So it could be anything that they're saying.
It still could be anything.
It could be anything that they're saying. So, boy, this is an enigma. It's a conundrum. Hopefully we'll work it out soon.
Weeks.
And, Russia is doing what Russia is doing down there. Putin has stand him ground. We proud of him. And we're up on his side. And then...
You mean over Crimea?
Yeah, man. We're up on Putin's side, man. And then... all right, upon his side, man. And then you have... we hear that there is an outbreak of Ebola in Guinea-Conakry. Yes.
Yeah.
No, Ebola is a serious thing, That is a serious thing. I'm going to follow that and see what's happening there. That sounds serious to me. All right, my brother. Walk good?
Walk good
too. Tell them how they're looking for artists, producers, managers to go to Gambia.
Yeah.
And as a poet, you're on that.
Yeah.
All artists, producers, managers, they're calling you for the International Gambia Roots Festival meeting. It is this Monday, that is tomorrow, March 24, at the African Village Cafe, Cafe Africa and Veggie Meals on Wheels. That's the corner of Eureka and Ripon Road. And to find out how we can provide publicity, promotions and merchandising for your music on the homecoming to Gambia from May 7 to 17. May 7 to 17. So you see Gambia is May 17 to 7 to 17. And then you just, nobody come back this way. Just stay up on the continent. Ethiopia is May 25.
That's African Liberation.
Yes, May 21 to June 25. So just stay up on the continent. But anyway, so this is happening tomorrow, March 24, at the African Village, Cafe African Veggie Wheels and Meals, the corner of Eureka and Ripon Road. Find out how the homecoming team can provide publicity and promotions and merchandising for your music in the Gambia. Be there tomorrow. It didn't say what time? It didn't say what time. All right, I says it didn't say what time. All right, thank you, my brother.
You're welcome.
You're going to the Gambia or to Ethiopia?
I want to go to Ethiopia.
Oh, you see me there?
Forefathers.
All right. So we're talking for this.
All right.
Yeah, man, walk good.
Yeah, man.
People, you think you really know Jack Mackerel, but this Jack is the king of the pack. Jack Mackerel from Grace. Better value, better taste. Take home a can today.
The time is
11 minutes now after 9 o'clock. You're inside of the Africa Forum, Running African. I want to say a very pleasant morning to Nana Erna Broadbar. Nana, good morning to you. Good morning. Just thinking of you. Just quickly to tell you that the commemoration of the 51st Coral Gardens atrocity against Ras Tafari is going to be on April 18 at Pit 4 Nyabingi Center, Montego Bay, 5 p.m. There'll be an elders banquet, Coral Gardens testimonies, panel discussions. On April 19, there'll be sound system, stage show, artists, and poets. And you'll hear much more about that. Just write it down. The commemoration of the 51st Coral Gardens atrocities against Ras Tafari, April 18, 2014, and then again, April 19. Also, to quickly let you know that the fourth staging of This Poem Words and Agro Festival on April 27 by the beach in Hope Bay, Portland, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. It's an all-day event. The fourth staging of This Poem Words and Agro Festival on April 27 at the beach in Hope Bay, Portland, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. It's an all-day event. And for the artists, producers, and so on, we're going to be heading to Veggie Meals and Wheels, the corner of Eureka and Ripon Road, to find out how you can get your music and so on on the continent of Africa in Gambia. The meeting is at 5 p.m. 5 p.m. The The 124th anniversary of the birth of His Imperial Majesty. All right, the 124th anniversary of the birth of Empress Menin. Is this an activity? It says it's going to take place. The birth is going to take place at the Porous Community Center on the 3rd of April at 3 p.m. Please fix this and send it back to me. Let me know what's happening. 124th anniversary of the birth of Her Majesty Empress Menin, taking place at the Porous Community Center, the 3rd of April at 3 p.m. The Department of Sociology, Psychology and Social Work and the Department of Literatures in English at University of the West Indies, Mona, presenting the screening of a documentary, The Story of Lovers Rock, a film by Menelik Shabazz about the soothing romantic subgenre of reggae that took a foothold amongst the black community in England. Key Jamaican contributors to this genre were Sugar Minot, Gregory Isaacs and Dennis Brown. It's going to be on Friday, March 28 at 6 p.m. at the Neville Hall Lecture Theatre 1 on the UWI Mona campus. All right, please do not send me posters. I can't read posters while I'm on air. Please do not send me posters. Send me a quick note and I'll be able to read it. For posters, I have to be navigating my way through what is important and what is not so. So if you have sent me a poster and you haven't heard it, you still have some time to send me a text. In a little while, we're going to be speaking with Dr. Sonia Stanley Niah. She has brought something to the attention of the world, to the attention of Jamaica, but I think is critical, is crucial. Talking about the Trinidadian textbook, Creative English for Caribbean Primary Schools, foregrounding Eurocentric ideals of beauty. And Sonia Stanley Niah, Dr. Sonia Stanley Niah, brought that to our attention. We saw it in the newspapers. There have been some discussions on that. We want to talk to her about why it is important to identify these texts, to take them out of the schools, and why parents and teachers and the Ministry of Education have a responsibility to be vigilant on this. Dr. Sonia Stanley Niah is the inaugural Rhodes Trust Rex Nettleford Fellow in Cultural Studies, 2005. She is Senior Lecturer in Cultural Studies at the University of the West Indies, Mona campus. She's the author of Dance Hall From Slave Ship to Ghetto, published by the University of Ottawa Press, 2010, and editor of Broader Than Broadway, Caribbean Perspectives on Producing Celebrity, Volume 12 to 2009. Going to be talking with her in...
Speak truth to the people. To identify the enemy is to free the mind. Free the mind of the people. Speak to the mind of the people. Speak truth.
All right, we're back with you inside of the Africa Forum. Dr. Sonia Stanley Niah joins me on the telephone lines. Good morning, Dr. Stanley Niah.
Good morning, my sister. How are you?
I am doing very well, and you?
I'm very, very well.
You know, so we kind of preempted your interview by calling your husband. I do apologize.
Because, I said to myself, I heard Jelani on the phone. I'm like, and he can't talk to me. I figured he was talking to you.
Yes.
You could be the only person he's talking to at that hour all of the morning.
Yes, and I thank him very much for us because, that was like a spur of the moment call and really, really did so well. All right, Sonia, a very serious matter because here we are talking about education, talking about 100 years of Garveyism and what the UNIA and under Morlemu Marcus Mosiah Garvey wanted in terms of the curriculum, in terms of African philosophy and so on. And 100 years after, we are here now talking about a textbook that is promoting, is a word, Eurocentric ideals. I want you to just back up for us and give us a little bit of background to this book. What do you know of this book, the author, the publisher, and so on?
All right. So this book is, first of all, let me just say that it came to my attention based on the concern from a godparent at one of our prominent prep schools. Mm-hmm. And in fact, I received an email, saw the email, and, I get so many emails, I didn't immediately address the email. So something said, go back and look at this email, and I read it properly. And then I decided to tweet something about the text. Mm-hmm. In fact, I tweeted the page that was scanned for me, which includes the particular context of what I consider to be very stereotypical European stereotypes of beauty. Now, when I tweeted it, there was a lot of response, and I thought, okay, well, I'm not crazy. The parent is not crazy. Clearly, there is something of concern here.
Yes.
And I then decided to engage with a few other people about how it is we could get some attention around this issue. So I started to engage people, and that was when I saw very clearly, Andrea, that there are a number of issues that I want to highlight about three of the major issues arising in this context.
All right, before you go, Sonia, let us give a name of a book and the author.
Right, so it's Creative English for the Caribbean.
For Caribbean primary schools,
and and the author is Clifford Narentsing. This book comes out of Trinidad. And so one of the issues we're faced with is the fact that this book is not written by a Jamaican, not that it has to be written by a Jamaican, but then it brings into question the process of approval by the Ministry of Education for either books that are on the approved list. This book is apparently not on the approved list. So, but we also know that there's a supplementary list, and the approval process for this supplementary list is also in question. Now, the particular passages, the lessons in the book, one particular section about adjectives, names, Nita and Jill, for example, as being light-skinned and with fierce, with round face, brown features, and likable. Another one naming Jill pretty, with these very similar features. And so there are two instances in that particular text where this appears. And I haven't scanned the text in total. I've seen the text that I've seen physically. I've received the digital scan, but I've also seen the text physically now.
Yes.
I'm also aware that in this series, there is book 1, book 2, going up to 5, and there is actually one of the texts with the word BITCH in it.
Wow,
now, I don't know that we would be wanting such words used in our classroom at the age level at which it is introduced. And I'm not saying that we're trying to
primary school. Remembering that these are primary school texts.
Absolutely.
Yes,
This text, the one in question, level 2, is used by 7-year-olds in primary school. Now, this is my issue. So this is the second issue for me. The first being the approval process by the ministry. The second issue for me is how are we equipping our teachers to engage with or screen appropriately the questions related to stereotyping around race. Remember, race is a social construct. This is something that we have imbibed and we continue to perpetuate in ways that sometimes seem benign, Andrea, seem benign, seem harmless, but they come to us, and we are not necessarily, as teachers in the classroom, going to engage in an English class about issues of race. And if the lesson is about English and adjectives and nouns, I don't see some of these teachers spending time to engage with a matter of race. You have an hour to teach a class. You're moving on to another class or another lesson after this. You're not necessarily going to engage with these issues. And this is part of my issue. The impressionable age between 5 and 7, if you engage any developmental psychologist, they will tell you that the image of self around that age, the formation of that image is extremely crucial.
And I'm saying you've answered a very important question: is how are teachers engaged on issues of race? But can you answer that? How and where? I mean, is this happening at all, and to what extent?
But I know it is not happening, and I say it is not happening. Even as I'm aware that some of these teachers come into my classroom. I teach at the University of the West Indies. I teach courses like Introduction to the Study of Culture. And I teach courses in Caribbean Cultural Studies, courses on various aspects of the entertainment and cultural enterprise management domain. And I see some of these primary level teachers or even high school teachers coming into my classroom. And some of them, I mark their papers. I know that outside of coming into a class such as mine or courses in politics, and in some cases, some of the literature courses that they might engage with, issues of race are not necessarily always encountered, much less for people in a country where we are still at the place where we understand that nothing black no good, some of us.
That's a point.
And I say it at a personal level because I myself, my grandmother, used to say things like, make sure the boyfriend is not too dark. This is a woman who was very dark-skinned herself, so I am not far removed.
It is a reality.
From this kind of
It is our reality, even while we're making inroads. It is our reality on the ground, and so no problem in saying that. What we're finding problematic here, Dr. Sonia Jelani, is so here we have a book that's, well, it's on the supplementary reading list, but there's another book in the series that's approved by the ministry. So what is the process? Or is there a concern at the Ministry of Education level? Is there a concern at those who actually write the curriculum? Is there any concern for race or classism? That is a question, you know, because if there's no concern, it really doesn't matter. The book will get in the school one way or the other.
Well, you know, I was privileged to have seen an interview on one of our stations, television stations recently, with one of the teachers, one of the panelists being a teacher from the very prep school where this book is being used, and the godmother of a child highlighted the concern for me. And that teacher was very clear that Jamaica's motto, out of many, one, predisposes us to a context for understanding racial diversity, and therefore beauty, aesthetics, notions of beauty, ideals of beauty in different shapes and form. My problem with that comment is that the 90-something% of us in this country who are of African descent are the very ones who are not often seeing images of beauty represented in our shape and likeness. And I say this as well to reiterate that the Lupita Nyong'os, for those of your listeners who are not aware of who Lupita Nyong'o is, she is a woman who has been lauded recently for her articulate, her
fashion sense, her ability to act,
articulate, bright, acting skills, her beauty. She's been giving speeches all over the place about beauty, and so she's been the sensation after winning the Grammy for Best Supporting Actress in terms of the film 12 Years a Slave, which I have seen.
Right.
I'm saying the Lupita Nyong'os of the world will always be relevant, because for black women, especially dark-skinned black women who are not this stereotypically highlighted ideals of beauty, these women will always be relevant, because there are numerous children in Jamaica who are never hearing the thing that their coarse hair, round face, dark skin is likable and pretty. And I'm saying we must be vigilant about discriminating against such stereotypes, especially in a context where we have people bleaching their skin to gain either social status or become the ideal of beauty, advancing in some way in our society, because they understand the age-old maxim that we still have, some of us, that nothing black no good.
One of the things I noticed a few years ago, and I was very vocal about it and upset, was that the Ministry of Health had a campaign where they went out on the street, and they were on this program and on my Tuesday night program and on every program they could find, where they went out on a campaign against bleaching. By itself, that sounds okay. But then it makes you wonder about how the ministries are corresponding. Because at some level, where do we, I know the home is important, but it's a vicious cycle. At what level do we begin to inculcate notions of beauty? And at what level do we begin to say to our children, you're black and you're beautiful, and it's okay to be beautiful?
Absolutely. Your point is, your question and your point in that question is spot on. Precisely because this is my concern. We don't understand that all parties have to be working together. Yes, the home, the parent is important. Yes, the school is important. Yes, the teacher is important. But the very books that we are importing are also to be scrutinized appropriately. This is my question. We have to, all of the facets of the wheel have to be working together. And so when parents highlight that there's a problem in a text, it's not that we are necessarily thinking we're going to discard all of these texts or we're going to get on a bandwagon or a campaign to remove these texts from the school. What we're saying is the ministry has to put in place the very mechanisms to see to it that these things are addressed, they're caught and addressed.
What about
if it is that you're going to remove a page or you're going to put a note in the book to say, teachers, be aware that this is something that we want to flag. There are various ways to do this, Andrea. And we have seen where books introduced in schools, the health and family life education books the other day, introducing a certain kind of homosexual lifestyle, we saw where teachers and, in fact, parents got in an uproar about it. So,
well, a few years ago, Sonia, we had on this program, actually, my friend Dermot Morris was another parent who called me to say, listen, there is a book that my daughter is using in school, and I can't remember the name of it now, but a Rastafarian is depicted in the book, but the Rastafarian is depicted as a thief because the Rastafarian, like him, picks somebody's wallet and running with it, and the person shouting thief or something to that effect. So we have a problem.
We have a problem because the stereotypes in our brains are not necessarily the ones that are appropriate, and I don't understand how we can watch American television and understand when they talk about being politically correct, and we don't understand that in our context we need to be politically correct as well. Very soon it will be a bad thing for you to walk around calling anybody fat. It will also be a bad thing for you to be calling anybody a homosexual or behaving in a way that mimics homosexual behavior. Those things are going to become politically incorrect whether we like it or not, precisely because what we are trying to engage with, especially for our social context, is what gives respect, Andrea, to everyone, regardless of how different you are, regardless of how your features might not represent what is considered in anybody's book to the ideal. Everyone is beautiful. I consistently tell people that I've never seen an ugly person. I think people ugly up themselves. You don't come ugly. God don't bring you to earth ugly, right? Yes. You ugly up yourself by what you do to yourself, whether inside your spirit or outside. And so I think that what we're engaging with here is a question about respect. And unfortunately, some of us in this country are still at the level where we don't understand that there's a lot of disrespect done to the people who have occupied this land for so long, who are the peoples of African descent, who appear as darker-skinned people and not the European ideal or stereotype of beauty. And we don't want to promote that in our schools.
What about persons who are listening to us who are saying, this is much ado about nothing, we're taking this, blowing this out of proportion. A book has a sentence that says Nita has brown eyes and neatly trimmed eyelashes. Her hair is long and black and is always neatly combed. A round face with slender nose and brown complexion make her pretty and likable. That's what the text is. What about those persons who are saying, so what is wrong with that? I mean, why are we up in arms or seemed up in arms about this?
What is wrong with that is that there is no other ideal of beauty that is presented in that text. And as a matter of fact, that text, this particular section, is not about people. It's about adjectives.
Yes.
So it is not as though it is appropriate necessarily to be using these kinds of descriptions in that context. What I'm saying is, yes, you can use any adjectives. You can draw for any of the adjectives to use in order to convey that lesson.
Of course.
What I'm saying is that if it is that you're going to use those adjectives, why can't you use some others? Let's be balanced here. And we understand that the text comes out of Trinidad, and it's quite likely that people around will see this kind of long hair,
brown complexion as what makes you pretty. And pretty. Yes, because that at the end of the day, you're teaching adjectives and this, whatever you're teaching. But here we are. I mean, there is still a sentence here, and we're talking about subliminal messages, because the message here is that because you have slender nose, because you have brown complexion, this is what makes you pretty, and this is what makes you likable. Absolutely. So what is the opposite of that?
Absolutely. And I'm saying where there is no alternative or balance in that context, the child is going to leave thinking these are the things that make you pretty and likable.
Yes.
And I'm saying that message is one that we want to guard against, because we have so many children in Jamaica already who don't see their own image on television. They don't see their own image appearing on catwalks or on red carpets. And we want, first of all, we don't have a campaign in Jamaica that says everybody is beautiful, Andrea.
Yes. But
we don't have any such program.
We're going to start it just as you said.
But yet we have books that can come in and tell us what the ideal of beauty is, and try to get away with these messages.
Well said, Sonny. And I know the Ministry of Education has now responded. Did you see that response? I saw it in the paper.
Yes, I saw the response.
What are they saying in effect? And I know you're not talking for them, but because I don't.
No, I'm not talking for them at all. I understand that they're going to be reviewing the text. Well, first of all, the capacity building is important, and let me start by saying that I was very pleased and heartened to see the minister, our very own Minister of Education, commenting about the need for people in Jamaica to study culture. Mm-hmm. That the University of the West Indies, for example, or tertiary institutions need to have our students study culture. Cultural studies was what he said. Mm-hmm. And first of all, I am very open to those kinds of suggestions, because that is where, let me tell you, my students, I must be the lecturer at the university that has the most students visiting after they've completed their course. They come back to my class. Not only that, the people in my class bring their friends to my class because they want to introduce their friends to the things that I'm teaching. Yes. All I'm teaching is introduction to the study of culture. But that is where we engage with the politics of culture, Andrea. That's the basis on which we're having this discussion.
Yes.
It's not just that we are here in a particular culture, and we have certain values, beliefs, and norms that we have associated with and been socialized into. What it is that when in a global context, knowing your culture and the politics of that culture and the politics of how culture works, especially in terms of race, class, and gender, that becomes crucial. And so we need everybody to get up to speed with that understanding. The students in my class, the teachers in the classroom, everybody. So that we can translate in our homes when my daughter or my son, at 2 years old or at 3 years old. You notice when 2-year-old children, they don't discriminate,
No, yes.
Any race you see, you go to any country and you speak to a child, they don't discriminate.
They soon learn how to.
They're operating at the level of energy and spirit, Andrea.
Yes. Marcus Garvey, Marcus Garvey talks about that. We were talking, even for himself as a child, we were talking earlier with Imhotep Raho Kimetban. We were talking about the Confucius Center, for example, that studies the institute that's there at the University of the West Indies. And while we say, fine, so there's something there, you can go get Chinese, you can get Chinese history, you can, tap into China. I think that's very, very important. How important is it for the balance for a Marcus Garvey, a Mwalimu Marcus Messiah Garvey institute somewhere up at UA, at UTech, or put down somewhere in the middle of somewhere? How important is that in terms of education in Jamaica within the context of cultural studies?
It goes right back to the question I raised, Andrea. We are still not at the level where we appreciate what we have given to the world. We can still be debating whether Marcus Garvey should be a national hero. Hello? It goes to the heart of the very question you've asked.
Yes,
why don't we have an institute that is in fact engaging with Marcus Garvey at a university, at a tertiary level? Yes, we have Liberty Hall, the legacy of Marcus Garvey, attached to the Institute of Jamaica. Mm-hmm. But I don't consider that the Liberty Hall agenda could be divorced from a tertiary institution engaged at the level of an institute or a center focused on Marcus Garvey. When people in Jamaica realize that Rasta and reggae, which have in fact benefited so much from Marcus Garvey's philosophy and teachings, when we understand what we have given to the world is when we really will take what we do seriously. And this is my wish. I wish that one day I won't have to have these discussions and I won't have to come on your program to talk about capacity building in terms of culture and the politics of culture and knowing and loving who we are and what we have created and given to the world.
I agree with you. What do we say now, Sonia, to parents? I know we're talking about the schools and so on. In the meantime, what do we say to parents?
What we say to parents is that we educate ourselves. We don't engage in activities or lessons with our children that do not promote respect. Vigilantly try to learn with your children. I know some of the parents are not necessarily, don't feel themselves equipped to engage with some of the lessons that would be contained in books that their children are using. But we must be able to engage. I, for example, I don't know some of the things that my children are learning in high school now. I try and engage with them. I try and read what it is that they're doing, and I also am learning myself. So we all have to take the position that we're all students, learning about ourselves, learning about our culture, and engaging at the level of respect. So I would want to say to parents, be open, because a closed mind is not going to get us anywhere. And I am not advocating that we do away with these texts. I am advocating that as a nation we become prepared for the images and the stereotypes that pass us in books that our children are using in schools as benign, as harmless. Let us become vigilant at seeing these things. Let us become vigilant at advancing our nation beyond the disrespect that has been meted out to people who are of dark complexion, who, like the Lupita Nyong'os of the world, have not been put on the covers of major magazines for many years, but are seeing the rewards only slowly but surely.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Sonia Stanley Niah, my sister, at Culture Doctor. You can follow her on Twitter, at Culture Doctor. Thank you very much, Sonia. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Andrea.
All right. Sonia Stanley Niah there talking about, and it's interesting, it's something that we probably have to go back to at some point, the politics of culture. Thank you, Sonia. It's time now for the bottom line. Last week, we promised that we wanted to talk about the dehumanization of the African Jamaican, and so we didn't have a time. So here we are now with the bottom line on the dehumanization of the African Jamaican. The bottom line is that this morning, I want to talk about the continued conspiracy to dehumanize the African Jamaican and henceforth the masses of the Jamaican people in this country. I want to talk about the systematic denial of humanness to the majority of Jamaicans through government policies, state institutions, political tribalism, colorism, classism, the education sector. The bottom line is that this dehumanization, a denial of humanness, which is indeed so destructive, its toll on us as a nation is greater than that of the wars in Iraq, Afghanistan, or Pakistan. A dehumanization that is so destructive on us as a people, it threatens to destroy the very fabric of our nation, even as we become more and more barbaric, vulgar, and cruel. A dehumanization which might very well be in its physical manifestation like the fourth horseman of the apocalypse. It neither kills outright nor inflict apparent physical harm, yet the extent of its destructive toll is already greater than that of any war. Ashley Montague in The Dehumanization of Man talks about being more destructive than any war, any plague, any famine, or natural calamity on record, and its potential damage to the quality of human life and the fabric of civilized society is beyond calculation. For that reason, the sickness of a soul might well be called the fifth horseman of the apocalypse. Its more convenient name, of course, is dehumanization. Ashley Montague. The bottom line is that African Jamaicans are systematically dehumanized through a series of institutionalized methods to include political tribalism, poverty, miseducation, overcrowded classrooms, racist textbooks, a transportation system which presupposes that the masses of the Jamaican people are animals. Not to mention the PATH program and others like it. Denial of public access to public spaces such as beaches. Denial of basic human rights. Criminalization of our young boys and men. A police force which enforces brutal and heartless punishment without the benefit of trial on the back of the poor. Lack of partisan free union representation. Voicelessness, landlessness, classism, and colorism. I know I'm naming them out, but sometimes we have to call the things by their names to identify what they are, to recognize their true personality, their true character. Sometimes we have to call their names before we can change them. The bottom line is that decades of injustices and inequalities and inequities have only served to barbarize and dehumanize a large segment of our society. Politicians in representative politics represent, for the most part, only themselves, their families, and their cronies. And we keep voting for them over and over again, expecting that with each vote, someone will miraculously change. The bottom line is that successive governments, JLP and PNP, have presided over the imbruting of an entire nation, smiling all the way as they preside over policies which only serve to degrade African Jamaicans to the level of brutes. State-organized dehumanization on which they both agree, JLP and PNP, the IMF, is a case in point. State-organized dehumanization, which begins with our children, who are crammed into classrooms with 50 and 60 other children, separated only by chalk and talk blackboards, denied recreational spaces such as proper functioning playfields, green areas, teachers forced to become higglers and hustlers, and where education is devalued while barbaric murder music is defended in Parliament. It's a conspiracy to dehumanize. State-organized dehumanization through transportation systems into which our children are shuttled like cattle, forced to sit in the laps of strangers who may or may not finger rape them, on roads which can barely get them to and from schools. The bottom line is that this is a deliberate process of dehumanization in which the masses of the Jamaican people continue to be excluded from the social, economic and political processes, even while politicians seek to keep up pretenses that we all have a voice, a say in the decisions they so callously make. We see them, we hear them. It's part of a dehumanizing process, the imbruting of a nation. The bottom line is that poverty is part of the process of dehumanizing the masses of the Jamaican people. Certainly, our political representatives who are supposed to be representing our interests do not experience the same level of poverty. And even if they entered politics without land or with almost nothing, just give them a few weeks, just give them a few months. They are now landowners and owners of many homes, while their constituencies, for the most part, wallow in poverty. How many political representatives, MPs, do you know who do not own land, never did own land, never did own their own home or her own home before they entered politics, who do not now drive an SUV? How come they are not suffering similar fates, considering that it's a Jamaica problem? Similar fates as the masses of Jamaican people. The bottom line is that the masses of Jamaican people have to remain poor, have to remain landless, have to remain homeless for political tribalism to work. The masses of the people have to be dehumanized, have to remain voiceless and landless for politicians to maintain power to continue the process of dehumanization. The masses of the Jamaican people have to remain on the path program for political tribalism to work. What is the value of the African life in Jamaica? Or is a fourth horseman of the apocalypse here? When the Lamb opened the fourth seal, I heard the voice of a fourth living creature say, "Come and see." I looked, and there before me was a pale horse. Its rider was named Death, and hell was following close behind him. They were given power over a fourth of the earth to kill by sword, famine, and plague, and by the wild beasts of the earth. A country in which death is expected violently, and no form of death is too brutal, violent, or vicious to warrant action from those who can change the system, from a church which should abhor the devaluing and the dehumanizing of the masses of the people, from civil society which is not so civil after all, or from children who are now desensitized to death and have come to see it as a norm. They talk about death and killing as if it is normal, as if there's no other way. That's how our children talk about death and killing in Jamaica. They themselves embracing it in their own socialization. This is a brutal society. But there are many things worse than death. What is the value of life in Jamaica? They're doing something about us without us, and we are so dehumanized, so imbruted, so brutalized that we don't even seem to care. How many of us want more for our children, for our nation, for ourselves? Let us take a stand now. Let us take a stand today. Let us take a stand against poverty. Let us take a stand against political tribalism. Let us take a stand against the imbruting of a nation. It's not too late. Today we must stand with one voice against injustice, against inequity, against poverty, against a system whose only aim is a continued dehumanization of the masses. We must take a stand today. Now we must do it in our homes by refusing to be part of a corrupt system. We must take it in our families, take a stand in our families, in our communities. We must take a stand. Even if we're sitting down, we must take a stand against the dehumanization of the African Jamaican. That is the bottom line.
Speak truth to the people. To identify the enemy is to free the mind. Free the mind of the people. Speak to the mind of the people. Speak truth. Hide nothing from the masses of the people.